Good evening, everyone. My name is Laura Schifrin, and I'm calling the joint meeting, I'm going to call our meeting to order first, of the Board of Selectmen on April 9th, 2025 at 7 p.m. in Selectmen's Chambers. Roll call, please.
Veronica present.
Laura Schifrin present. And then down here, have my
yeah, I think so.
please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance.
To the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
I'd like to thank all of our veterans, all of those who are serving here and abroad, and all of our emergency response people and their families. We are in debt of gratitude. Meeting is being recorded and will be uploaded to YouTube. Is there anyone else recording? I'm saying none. 1.4 chairman's additions or deletions, I have none. And we do not have minutes this evening. So 2.1, joint meeting of finance.
Okay, call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 7:01 p.m. Roll call, please.
Carol Hawks is present.
Gerald DeZiegles, Mary Jane Churchill present.
Don Hayes present. With that, we have a quorum. We are good to continue. I will also make the announcement the meeting is being recorded for playback on Channel 9 as well as posting on the YouTube channel for viewing on demand. And that takes us to the joint meeting to discuss budget and related items.
And specifically, pay as you throw, or are you doing
We could probably, Irene can probably talk about the pay as you throw.
Yeah,
Okay.
I want to give like I just have a couple slides. Can I just show that with it?
Yeah, I did too.
Does anybody can we screen share it or?
Oh, I put it on
Yeah.
the screen.
Oh,
Yep,
perfect.
I'm gonna share it.
Yeah.
This is a joint meeting of the Board of Selectmen and Finance. It's a joint meeting.
Right.
So I'm just going to go through a few slides. I'm Irene Condon, so I always have two hats on, but I am Mass DP Recycling Coordinator for Central Massachusetts. I've been doing this position for over 23 years, and I actually have helped 75 communities with their trash, recycling, solid waste, hazardous waste, reuse, transfer stations, and curbside programs. I actually helped you guys a long time ago to go curbside recycling from the transfer station to the curbside before I even moved into town. But I'm a resident at 133 Brookline Street here in town. And if we can just go to the slides.
Yeah, I'm trying to start the slide deck. How do I?
Slideshow on top. It says animation, slideshow, next one. Yep. Not now. Yeah. I don't know what that was. So I just wanted to share what's in our trash still. This is in the trash. We have recycling, but using Massachusetts, the central mass, a lot of us go to what is still in the trash. And I just want to give you this picture of when we think of the whole budget that we have for trash. The green is recycling, blue is organics, the yellow, green, and blue is the transfer station, what we collect. And then 38 is real trash. And we've been having a budget of about $800,000, but in the past 880. And a lot of that can be recycled and reused and composted. Townsend has done the best job that we have a transfer station, we have hazardous waste program, we have compost bins. I know a lot of people that have compost bins at their house. I have one. They have chickens, they feed their chickens. So this is very reduced for us, and because of pay as you throw, we've even reduced more. You can go to the next slide. So these are the things that we have. We have recycling at the curb. We have composting going on at people's houses. People have their yard waste, and we have yard waste at the transfer station. We collect all the stuff at the recycling center, and we've gotten a purple bag. And we have Devon's Hazardous Waste open 20 times a year. We have the best program in the entire country in Townsend, and we need to appreciate that. So go to the next slide. What's the breakdown of the costs? It's collection, it's disposal, it's processing of all the waste ban items, not just the paper and containers at the curb, but all the stuff that we collect at the recycling center and the hazardous waste. Go to the next one. We do have the most effective and efficient program, not only economically of what the town pays, what the resident pays, environmentally, sorry, I spelled everything wrong, and it's fair. In June, we were at $880,000 that it was on the tax base. In October, we cut that down of everybody paying the $3.50, and we've reduced our trash. We brought in new revenue to the town. And now we have a contract, which is 770. I think we said 700, close to 780. And we're breaking down the collection cost to about $480,000. Disposal costs by per ton and recycling per ton. That is the best contract that you can get in Massachusetts. And we should be proud. We have weekly trash and weekly recycling. And that number I can't get in other towns. And most other haulers won't even bid on Townsend because they know we have the best contract. Since October, because of it, we've reduced. You can see already $100,000 we've reduced, and we have the bag revenue coming in. So we'll go to the next. The puzzle, this is what we always keep on coming up to. Fixed cost, variable cost, they have to be. Something is paying the fixed guy going down the road. We have to have fixed revenue. You can't put the whole thing on the bag. The variable cost is the bag. And this is the puzzle that we keep on coming up to. So if we go to the next slide. So this is the options. I'm sorry, it got a little squished in here, but the resident before was putting out what they wanted to do. The taxes were paying all the costs, and the hauler was giving us the $880,000 bill. Before, everybody was paying the taxes. Now, we have the residents paying a little bit, the town taxes pay a bit, we get the revenue from the bags to go into that little bank. All are invested in the program, and our hauling costs are now cheaper. It's actually what we said is pretty much half, 400 is gonna be the base cost. But everybody's invested, and there's little revenue, a little administration cost to it. Money keeps on coming in, and all have access. So nobody is told they can't go. They can have the curbside program, they have the drop-off program, or they have the hazardous waste program. Everybody has access. If you increase the bag to a certain number, pretty much any cents over what we have right now, I would have normally not have said $3.50 right away. But because of our situation last year, we had to go with $3.50 because that's what our overflow bags were. So if we wanted to go within four weeks of starting, we had to go with $3.50. That would have been a 5-year number I would have probably given you. I wouldn't have started that high. 10 cents more, I think, is dangerous. And the reason for is you think you have residents, as they are in Ashby right now, pay a lot. And when you pay more per bag, they reduce more because that's the program. It's economically that way. But then people drop out of the program. And when people leave the program, you reduce the town's investment. You're not invested, the resident's not invested, and the contract will be a question mark because we're not going to be able to pay for it. And then it spirals down. And why that is the next slide. It is an economic law. Diminishing returns. So sometimes we think, okay, I'll pay a candy bar, it's $1. Everybody will buy the candy bar. $1.50, everybody will buy the candy bar, it's okay. $2, they'll buy a candy bar. If you hit that $3, $4 number, I don't think I need the candy bar. I'll make my own candy at home cheaper and I'll have 20 bars.
What evidence do we have for that?
This is where we are right now because we've already lost people. We've already lost 200 people into the program by being at $3.50. So we're right. I say we're just about before that diminishing returns. We cannot go 10 cents more on a bag.
Well, but I mean, I think we lost a lot of people when we went to the bags because that got sprung on them halfway through the year. I don't think it was necessarily the cost of the bags.
I have that in other
Because of,
towns.
if I contract privately.
Yeah.
That's costing me $45 a month.
Yeah.
If I'm buying one pack of bags a month, I've
Paying a
got
lot
room to
less.
play there. I'm paying
Yeah.
a lot less. So if I have to pay a little more, it's still worth it to stay in the program.
And that's where it is diminishing returns, but the 10 cents won't give us more reduction.
Well, but I guess I'm just questioning. I mean, this is I agree with you, basic economic curve. The problem is always knowing where am I on the curve?
Yeah.
And that's not an easy thing to figure out. Right. And
I'm just saying we're getting
I'm
close.
just thinking that based on the alternative costs that we have, I don't think we've reached the crossover from green to orange yet. I guess is what I'm.
So I'm kind of saying yes, and I have most of my communities are not healthy communities, are in the $2.50, $3, $2.50
Okay,
is most of my communities.
okay,
Lunenburg just went a little over, but the ones that are paid, that are curbside, I mean, drop off, like
like Pepperell,
Ashby, Pepperell, Lunenburg, I just have Ashburnham. They are not a healthy program. They only have 10% of the population participating. And
So what
that's
are the
what we
other-
don't want to have 10% participating. We need to have,
so what
we're
are the other
90%.
90%, what are those other 90% doing then?
They're doing curbside pickup with a private hauler, paying
Okay.
$600 a year.
Okay,
And that's not a healthy program.
I don't argue that point.
So we're at 90% of the households that can participate are participating. We have a healthy, efficient, effective program right now. And so I just want us to be aware of that this curve happens, and it doesn't just happen in our contract here is good. So if you go to the next slide. The next video, I wanted to show you personal testimony of, it
Is this
should work.
Is this embedded in here?
Yeah, there she is. Okay,
That's just the,
it should go. It went on me. This is
Oh, you
the,
have to do the click
she's
thing.
done 15. There's no way. I just had it there. So she is the Board of Health Director in Upton. They've had a pay-as-you-throw program for over 15 years. They tried the flat fee. They've tried all different types of programs. And she says the bags with taxes are the best. And it's just like, I've done it. It's just the administration for her is not a problem. Before it was. So if you go to the next slide, what's our goals? So what's the best program? The best program, I think, if you're thinking as a community, which you are right now, is we want the most participation. We want the best service. We want to negotiate the best price so we don't waste our community's money. We want to promote material management, not just a throwaway society. We wanted people to invest in that. And you want to take town ownership. So if we have a program, we want our money to be a part of it so we're not renting it. So a lot of people, when they go to a full flat fee program, the town's no longer invested in the program because it's not my money. And so thereby, everything that happens at the curb is then rented. It's not for you. On a resident's perspective, my perspective as a resident here in Townsend, we want the best service. We want it easy. We want it curbside. We want it fair, like all utility bills. I want to pay for what I use. I don't want to pay somebody else's. I just want to pay mine. And we want to be able to, as easy to dispose of everything else. So I like the transfer station. It's open. I can get there. On the state side, we need you to understand that in the next 5 years, we will not have a landfill anywhere in Massachusetts. We will have a catastrophe in 5 years. It's a crisis, and we need everybody to be prepared for that. And in that case, all trash will go up dramatically. So we need to keep our numbers efficient and fair now, because in 5 years, the landfill here in Fitchburg, where our stuff goes to right now, is half of Central Mass's trash is going away. So people are now going, and haulers are already starting the rail lines. We go to Ohio and Alabama every day for trash in Massachusetts. Only about 25-30% go right now. In 5 years, it'll be 70%. And that cost will have issues. We need to promote material management. We have waste bans in place. We have a solid waste plan that we need to reduce our waste by 30%. So Townsend just did it. I don't want you to go backwards. That's all. And on the environment, the less we're going to other states for our trash, the less waste being landfilled or incinerated, the less wastefulness of our resources that we have to dig up for getting oil and iron and ore from poor countries is better for all of us. So that's really it. I mean, I have a few little pictures if you want to go to the next one. It's like, no matter what you choose, it's still coming out of the resident's pocket. So if we do taxes pay as you throw, if you do flat fee with pay as you throw, or private subscription, which is the least, don't do it. I have 17 communities that are trying to get out of it, and it's very, very difficult. So go to the next one. I just have a breakdown, but I think we have it here. Is our program right now is efficient. We're at 50%. It's a little more than that. Normally I would like 50% for bags, 50% for the taxes. But the way we have it now with the bags at $350, it's only asking for $300,000 to be on the tax base. And then we don't have to deal with administration. We don't have to do with everybody's in. We don't have to be the bad guy in it. And it goes through everybody. If you go to the next slide. Flat fee with taxes, flat fee paid private is the worst case scenario, 800. I even have people over $1,000 for not even the service that we have now. They get a third of the service that we have and are paying $1,000. A flat fee with pay as you throw is about, and I looked at it before with our numbers, it's about $120 plus bag. It's just more administration. It just doesn't make people happy. It doesn't keep you invested in us, because I want you to keep the Shaw's contract and work with him and keep that good. If you're not invested, if you're not even having $1 on the town budget, what do you care what the resident pays? So I want the town to be invested in this, and that just takes it off. And I do have towns that would love to have it on the tax base, even for, a little bit, $10 per household, something. It keeps it on there. So that's my Mass DEP, and I've been doing this. I've helped the communities. You guys, I live here. I've been wanting us to have the best program. We have the best program. So please keep it in the tax base. And I will work to keep us that we have an override. We just have to get this to keep on moving forward.
Thank you, Arlene.
Thank you.
That's a great presentation.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah.
So, suppose the override fails and we have to go to flat fee pickup, which is not what I'm advocating at all. But I'm seeing a lot about how, you put it on the tax base and it's going to increase 2.5% a year. Do you have any idea what the price for private hauling increases from year to year?
Oh my goodness. Just to give you an example, I mean, Shaw's is great. So that is, we just have the local guy that's here. And he is still the cheapest at $50 per month. A lot of others, even in our area, go up $5. And if we do not have a stable program, we will have vultures here, and you can just go to Pepperell and ask them what they're paying, $800 a year for service. And you have no control. So one thing that's great about a great contract, we went out to bid. We went out, we negotiated a contract. The town has lawyers looking over. We have a document that says this is the rate for this amount of time. When you're on your own, you get a bill. And then the next quarter, you get a bill, and it has fees. It always goes up. So you have no control, and you can't say, oh my goodness, it just went up 20%, which it did in, when we're working with Boylston. And he's at the meeting to try to get curbside pickup. And he's like, my bill just went up 20%. What do? You try to call the next caller, but then they work out deals that if you leave them, you have to pay $200 per household to get out of your non-contract. So
Mine went up 8% personally.
Okay.
So just all of a sudden, 8%.
And just wait next time when they talk about other fees that come up. Yep.
If I may, Ms. Selectboard, Good evening. This is Christian Roman speaking, Chairman of the Board of Health. Regarding Veronica's question about if the override doesn't go through, we at the Board of Health, we voted last night that that if the override doesn't go through, we would implement a system regarding like using like a sticker and charging the residents a one fee of $125 per year, including continue with the purple bags, but not raising the fees on the purple bags. And we're still trying to figure out that is if the override doesn't it fails to implement to either have a sticker on I don't know someplace visible so that Shaw's knows that that the people are participating on the program. I think Carla had the numbers about how much revenue would it bring with the purple bags with the sticker program that we wanted to include if the override doesn't fail. Carla?
Did Carla want to say something?
She just needs to unmute.
She has to unmute.
Unmute, Carla.
Okay, can you hear me?
Hi. Yes.
Oh, right. They have,
Okay, just a minute.
Yeah.
Christian, could you call your meeting to order because you have a quorum here? You have a quorum here.
Today is April 9th, 2025, 7:21 p.m. Joint meeting with the Board of Health, with the Select Board and the Finance Committee. Roll call, Christian Daniel Roman Ramirez, Chairman.
Charles Paul Serene, Vice Chair.
Okay. And is there anybody else from the Board of Health?
No, nobody else.
Okay.
Carla, as our administrator for the Board of Health.
Carla, do you want to speak?
If it pleases the board.
Yes, ma'am.
So we had met with the treasurer and the town accountant today, and we were looking over the numbers. And as the Board of Health met yesterday, they really felt that increasing the bag fees was not something that the residents would be looking at. And in previous conversations with the selectmen, you had talked about a fee, and you had talked about $125. So we did a little bit of numbers and looked at, even though there's 3,400 approximate people that participate in the program right now, there's been about 15% that have opted out. So we used a number of 1,800. And if you charged $125 a 1 year fee, and then they would purchase a sticker at the town hall, similar to like a rabies tag, it would have a number. The town clerk would be able to sell it, and the Board of Health would be able to sell it. They'd have a number. We'd have their name, their address. They'd have to have a receptacle where it would be clearly legible for the trash trucks to see. So if their receptacle is there and the sticker is there, they pick up the trash. If it's not there, they don't. So, and if you have 1,800 people that participate and it's $125, that's $225,000 of revenue.
And what was Shaw's response to that? Have you talked to Shaw's about that?
Shaw's asked, they were very worried about how they were going to be able to visibly see the sticker, because at this time you do not have a regulation that people have to use toters. If you drive around the town, you see many people just have the bags out. We try to promote as the Board of Health that it's better to have totes for the animals. But if this happened, a letter could go out to suggest that the sticker has to be visible in an area. It is encouraged for you to buy a tote so the animals don't come into your trash. But if not, you need to find something that is acceptable for the trash haulers to see. So then we talked with Shaw's about how it has to be big and it has to be a neon sign so the haulers can actually see it when they're coming down, and they'll get used to it. they will, but we thought that that was a very good option for receiving revenue without having to track and monitor who's paying, who isn't, what weeks do you pick up. If Shaw's doesn't see the sticker, they just don't pick up.
Okay.
So
Veronica?
I have two questions. One is, who is the contract with Shaw's with? Is the Board of Health thinking they're going to be signing the contract with Shaw's?
We would sign it first, then you would have to sign it and approve it. So it's a joint thing.
So, okay, let me ask the next question then. You come up short. Half the people in town decide they're not doing that. It's a waste of time. The trash is all over the streets. I'm getting my own hauler. If you come up short on what needs to be paid, how is that going to be covered? If the Board of Selectmen is the one that has to sign the contract, then the Board of Selectmen has to sign by bylaw anything over $5,000.
This is exactly what we're doing here. Is we're trying to help the town find the revenue. We're not suggesting that we are initiating a fee because that is the Board of Selectmen's role. That is your role to initiate a trash fee. We're just trying to give you options of how we would see revenue, knowing the track record of the tonnage and the amount of residents that would participate.
For the town to do it that way. It is a risk for the town.
Or it could be more, because I'm just trying to play. It could be
Well,
more.
was it not the Board of Selectmen's idea to initiate trash fees? Because the Board of Health is just going on what the selectmen had spoke about.
But when we had the discussion, we thought it was gonna be a nightmare,
Right.
bookkeeping wise and for Shaw's. But you also did say, I'll bring this up, you also said that you went with 1,800 households, but we have more than 3,000 households, right? So
Correct,
you're
but
50% less than what it could be.
Correct.
Irene, you stated that there was 200 people that had opted out of the program?
It was said at one time. So what we
Okay.
were thinking it would be, no, I think the number we had was 2,500 was when we said it, when we were doing the flat fee option. But definitely the number one option is stay as taxes. And
Right.
that is the number one option.
Right.
So we're talking about plan B in my, of going
If
with
it
that.
fails.
And
I am not in favor of
Well, we
signing a
certainly can't
contract.
sign before, the ballot or the end
Right.
of time.
There's no contract that we're just discussing.
Okay.
I think the other issue, I think 1,800, I think 1,800 is probably a good, very conservative number to use. But the flip side of that is the pay-as-you-throw revenue itself. If we're assuming, a lot of people are gonna leave the program, we're probably gonna see a dip in the pay-as-you-throw revenue, which is significant. So it's really anyone's guess how many people are gonna leave. So I'm concerned on the pay-as-you-throw revenue side, because right now we're expecting $480,000 in revenue from there. So, that could potentially drop pretty significantly.
I mean, I would guess as people start paying $50 a month and realize that they can pay less by getting bags, that you'd have some people coming back.
And Shaw's did actually say that there was a few households that did the numbers.
But I mean, at the moment, it's all speculation, and my concern is it's with the state. We were short late last year, and we had to come up with the difference with ARPA money, because the Department of Revenue saw that, our projections they didn't agree with it. So if come this November, December, if we enact, this fee, and the revenue doesn't come in, then, and we're hundreds of thousands of dollars short, then we're kind of in a pickle yet again.
Well, I mean, no matter what we do, the only way we're not taking a risk like that is to eliminate the trash program
Correct.
altogether.
That's right.
No matter, I mean,
No, that's not true.
Or if you don't touch the program, like nothing changes, like the bag prices stay the same and you don't add a fee. I think we're kind of at a pretty good equilibrium point, like that we can kind of safely predict what the revenue is gonna be. But once you make changes, I have no idea what it's gonna look like, and I wouldn't stake anything on like predictions, because it's really predictions at that point.
If I may,
Yes. Christian?
I don't know if it is prudent to have the accountant of the town of Townsend to give us more light about that information, because I think that the accountant has that information. But right now, I mean, that is what I would recommend have the accountant on the meeting. I mean, I don't know, and I know that we're running out of time for this, but that is what I would recommend to get more of that information. But I think that we, the Board of Health, we had voted on a contract, and we last night voted on implementing a Plan B for in the case that the override doesn't move forward for the trash contract. I mean, I don't know. Those are my thoughts regarding that.
Okay, thank you.
so, I think Nelson provided us the current numbers of where we are up through March. And I looked at that a little bit. Basically, we're bringing in from October, I didn't count September, I just did October to February. We were basically bringing in 38,290 a month.
Yeah.
That's what we brought in.
So I think, you know, so it's probably gonna average out to probably close to 40,000 a month, because we still have basically another quarter of data that we don't quite have. Actually, more than that, we still have
But if
July and August as well.
if we're continuing and trying to get better and have less trash, are we focusing that the number will be lower than that next year? I mean, it is for now, but if we're supposed to be getting better and having less trash and more recyclable and composting, that's going to be less revenue.
Actually, I have a question for you. Why is the recycled tipping fee higher?
Because of the processing. It is being processed, and you're supposed to see about a revenue. So right now, it's all going through conveyor belts, and it's in major programs. So right now, Shaw's just told me he moved from Harvey's in Westboro to Auburn in Shaw. Casella's MRF, Material Recovery Facility, in the town of Auburn. So that's where our recyclables go right now. And it goes on conveyor belt. So there is a cost when it goes through. There are people working, there's machines, that's a $64 million building. So it is being recycled. The markets, of course, are on Wall Street, just like everything else. So they go up and down. So what that is pretty much what he's giving us is the top number. But when we get it at the end, there will be a reduction from the what they've made from it. So there is like trying to have revenue sharing.
So you're saying the 125 number per
is
ton
the top number.
will get reduced based on how much money he
Correct.
gets from the recycling.
Yes.
But we don't get.
But there's no way that we can predict that either.
No. And the model originally was that we have a 30% increase, because that's separate. That goes through the facility of what they give us. Pretty much Casella normally gives us that number. So he's giving us the throwback number what he pays. So whatever.
You're talking about the recycling?
Yeah.
Is that in the contract that we
It just
actually?
says whatever he's paying, then we'll pay. So if he gets a reduction, then we'll get a reduction.
Okay, but yeah,
To the
so,
contract.
And right now, our recyclables are staying the same because we've had weekly recycling for so long. My family, I actually put out 3 bins of recyclables, weekly. with our family, that, there's no more recycling you can get out of it, you know, so we've been able to do that as residents in towns in here for a long time. So really our recycling number is not gonna go down. So where we're at has pretty much been steady, and just note that things still actually, get lighter, you know, we dropped all soda in our family. So guess what? The soda bottles have gone down. Detergent bottles, we're getting more into different types of detergents. So, our bottles are going down. So I actually expect our weight of higher things to go down. So we're in a good spot. And I know you had a separate question. I forget what I answered this, but.
But I just asked. I just fear that, we put the town at risk if we don't have it in the tax base. I mean, seeing what happened in this past December when DOR came back and said, "Oh, you guys, you have to come up with another 200K." We just don't have anywhere to come up with another 200K anymore.
It's actually, it was more than that. It was like.
Yeah, it was more.
It was like 287 or something.
I thought the 87 was a subtraction error that we had to fix, you know, come up with the money to.
It was a cell error.
Yeah, so it was around 200, might have been a little more, maybe 204 or something like that. But
Yeah, for the
we
trash
just
line.
don't have anywhere else to get it.
Yeah, that's my concern is, you know, if these projections are even slightly lower than what we're expecting, then, you know, it could mean hundreds of thousands of dollars that we're potentially short on. And, you know, it's really anyone's guess how many people would end up leaving the program. I couldn't even fathom a guess, to tell you the truth.
And Chair,
Oh, all right.
we've been kicking this can down the road for about, going on 2 years now? Has anyone put out a survey to the town to find out how the people feel, the voters, the people who are gonna be paying your program, or the taxes? Is there any way we can get a feel for that before we have to vote? I mean, can we do one of those surveys that you have online survey? Maybe? I don't know, they did a survey. What was it for?
They did all kinds of.
They did it, yeah.
Who's that?
Who's that? The
Well,
town.
the town has had different.
The town, well, they
Yeah,
did one
there
for
was
the
one
Well,
posted
open
recently
space.
for-
Yeah, we
And they
had
did one-
Recently, for what?
MRPC wrote the
Yeah.
open space one.
Yeah, MRPC did.
Is there any way we can do it? I mean, it
What
just
if
seems we keep talking about this and talking
Is
about
there,
it.
I don't know. Too bad we didn't think about this before.
Well,
Let
I'm
it over-
sorry.
I know, but I was
Yeah,
gonna say,
right. And
they
I was
put
just
it on
gonna say that.
on the
Well, I
ballot,
mean, you
because
know,
we
I
put
think it's
it, put
been
it on
2
the.
years. I think it's been since the pay-as-you-throw meeting, with the trash meeting.
That hasn't even been a
ago.
year.
And then
One
there
trash,
was-
no, yes and no.
Yeah.
Last summer,
So to
yeah,
look at,
so
yeah.
9
Started after
months.
me.
All right, I'm sorry I
maybe
made a
8 months.
mistake on the time frame. My point being,
No,
can we
but
ask the people? Their money, not ours.
I know, but
So to give you just some
Always.
perspective on different things, so different towns, when I just come in, I do a survey. And we put it in the census, and I actually get the best amount of people. I tell, if anybody wants to do any type of survey, they really should do it with the census. Every household gets
That's
it.
true.
We get almost 80% participation. Nobody gets a census
No.
of 80%. You don't even get that with an election. It's
Okay.
unbelievable. So those are the best ones, and everybody will tell you they want it convenient, they want it easy, they want it fair, and so that's the answer. And our program right now is that.
So that's what the people voted on?
Yeah, so those are the things, and we are gonna have a vote, and I think the vote is if people want the override, and if it's the different things, if they say no to an override, you just have to explain what's in the override. And if we have the $300,000 to keep keep the trash program as is, or we really have to recoup that money in a flat fee, that's Plan B. But
Well, I think that we should be absolutely looking at alternatives in the light of the fact that the override may not pass. I think to avoid that is derelict of duty.
I think the Board of Health has already done that. So they
Well,
already have
I'm
Plan
talking
B.
about, yeah.
But I don't know if anybody else has to go through that. If the Board of Health already has a plan B. We have to just wait for the election and the vote and discussion to see what is
Right.
needed.
Part of the sticker fee is I'm seeing people that pulled out of the program, got a dumpster, they're still putting out 2 and 3 barrels a week of recycling.
Mhm.
But they're not supporting the program, so either we sell the program to them and have them come back, or we go and implement the sticker program, and I'm sorry, Shaw's not gonna start picking up recycling from people that left the program, because the rest of the taxpayers are covering it right now. And it's,
Right.
it kind of rubbed my next door neighbor, it's kind of rubbing me the wrong way. 2 barrels of recycling, he's got a big dumpster sitting in his driveway.
And we pay the tonnage.
On the recycling.
when we start
At the
that.
present moment,
not
not,
yet,
it will start
not
in
yet.
July. Right now, we still have an all inclusive.
It's all in place.
So it doesn't really matter at the present moment, we're still paying that bill. So
Until the end of this fiscal year.
July, with the new contract starts, that it is broken up into 3 parts. Right now, we have an all inclusive.
Well, I still agree with that program. I still think we have, like you said, the best around. And it is cheaper than what the alternative is gonna be. Can you still get through that?
Yeah, and I had a question as it relates to the sticker and the 1,800 households. Is this still going from the contract that is listed at the 780,000 as a round number?
Yes.
So I was gonna say that's a lot of bags to sell to make up the difference between the 225 and the 780. And I think the people that are gonna hang on are the people like myself that are doing half a bag a week on average. It's kind of like I do 1 bag every other week. And so we're gonna enjoy the lower number, but it's not enough to support the total bill.
That's a good point. I mean, yeah.
So just want to say, the new contract is broken up into 3 parts. So if there is less trash, less participation, there will be less of a bill.
On
On the one side.
pickup, on the one side.
On the,
But
yeah.
there's still the
400,000.
400,000 that has to be,
Right, that, the guy has to go down the road, the guy has to get paid.
so
And
that,
if he picks up 1 bag or 100 bags, he's still going down the road.
And that's my concern. It's just
Right.
the bag revenue
Mhm.
is probably we're gonna see a drop when you implement the fee. I don't know what the drop is gonna look like, but I can't, and, you know, with my job, deal with unknowns like that, you know, because if we're short, you know, $100,000, you know, who, you know.
And go back to
who-
special town meeting, which we've done before,
And
which we
do
did in
what?
October.
And do what? Get it from where?
right.
It can be either an increase of fee or an increase in an override.
Well,
Small
But,
override.
but the fees got you into that place to begin with, so to,
So the goal is go over the override right now. You're talking about Plan B.
Yeah.
Let's go through Plan A first.
Can I just ask,
Sorry.
this says 3-year contract, but you
Yeah.
only have 2 years worth of, does it say June 28? It's 2028?
Yep.
Yeah,
There's a 3-year, there's an increase each year, it's just.
Right.
Yeah, it's a small
I know,
increase, so.
the contract should go to
The
28
first page.
on the first page, on the
On
cover
the cover
sheet.
too.
Yep,
On the-
typo.
Right, but on that
Yeah.
cover,
The cover sheet.
Yeah,
On
it is.
this page,
Shaw's
And
provided
even on the
that,
first
though.
page too,
second page.
so, or the second page, I guess.
I
So
had
that's a
mentioned.
proposal. I don't know, that's
I
not the
mentioned-
official contract.
Yeah.
Well, make
That's the
sure,
proposal.
all right, but it's still wrong. And sometimes I find proposals get turned into contracts with the wrong information.
Yeah.
Cause I've been there and done that.
26 and 27.
It's a typo.
and again, the first page is fiscal year
No,
2025,
3 years.
and it just starts in
But it's a
2026.
typo.
Oh,
It's gonna
here's
start this year in
5.
July.
Correct, which is fiscal year 2026.
Okay. This will be-
That's right, and that's what I'm saying, here it says fiscal year 2025.
Oh, okay, yeah. Yeah.
Right, and
That's a
then
good catch.
27 and 28.
Laura.
Excuse me, will you take public comment on this?
Yeah, sure.
God.
Yeah.
You guys are being hacked.
I am reminded that, this will be reviewed by
No,
town
that's-
council prior to.
Who said that? Who said
As a
that?
contract.
All right, shut it down, shut it down.
What are you
We're being
talking
hacked.
about?
We're being hacked.
No, we're not. That's
that
the
was Carol
picture that
Um,
goes with the
Okay,
person.
well, let's not have everybody talking at the same time, then we won't know what anybody's saying. And who was up? Who would like to speak?
I asked if you were taking
I can't,
Public.
who is that?
Who's speaking?
Sounds like Don Priest. We're having trouble. Don, is it Don Priest? We're not, you're breaking up. We can't hear you in the room.
Okay, so Don Priest, we can't hear. Carla is unmuted. Is there anybody else?
Are you
Cannot hear you. We cannot hear you.
You can type in the chat or call.
Do you want to type in the chat?
Is the chat up? Maybe
I
click on
don't
more.
have chat.
Click on more, see what more.
Yes.
More.
That's the picture on her Facebook page.
There's notes, meeting info, reset.
It is.
No, that's not gonna, that's
No,
not.
there's no chat.
Okay.
I moved to another area. Could you hear me now?
Oh,
Yeah,
yes.
little
that's
bit.
better.
Go ahead.
Thank you. I had just a couple of questions and some input since it was mentioned about what residents might want. I think that one of my question is, what about putting this through a revolving fund instead of through our tax base? Just, I disagree people will leave. I think people will come back as a resident because we'll know where the money is exactly going. It's out of the tax levy, which means it sticks with trash. And we're not worrying about next.
Okay, you're breaking up on us. I think we got the gist of what you said. Is a revolving fund possible with this?
Back
I
for
mean, I would,
more money for trash
Well,
again,
we're breaking up
because
again.
this would be, we had a trash override in 2001.
She's muted.
so the main question I heard from that was regarding the revolving
Yes.
account.
Yeah.
And so if we talk about the revolving account, it needs to be totally self-funding. You're not gonna move funds from the general fund into a revolving fund.
Right.
And then add additional funds to it as pay as you throw.
And that is a tall order because that would have to mean the revenue would have to be very close to what the expenses are. And we're nowhere near that. So that will be a tall order to actually accomplish.
Well, you'd still put tax money in there, it just would not be, so if you approved it. And then it's.
Well, I think Dawn wanted it to truly be off the tax base, which
I think she
right.
just said revolving account, just so that you can see the money flow.
No, she had said totally off the tax
Okay,
base.
fine,
So-
you can't have pay-as-you-go bags by itself, because $6 a
Right.
bag
Yeah.
is not
Right.
sustainable.
Right, well, that's why I'm saying it's a tall order, it's almost impossible to achieve, where we get enough revenue to cover the expenses. You know,
Right.
you can increase the price as much as you want, but if no one buys it, then.
It's still not gonna fund itself.
But Ashby's paying 7,
And that's not sustainable.
if it's happening, right?
It is happening,
How
but
long
there's
has it been
only
going
one
on?
person, they go once a month. to pay.
How long have they been paying $7?
I think since July.
12, or month.
It's not sustainable. There's only 300 households using that.
So that's 9 months it's been going on. Okay.
That's not bad. So I don't recommend that in any fashion at all.
I mean, that's a really high price.
Right,
It
yeah,
is.
with $7 a household, if you average 1.5
You
bags,
need
you're
to
over
have-
the $50 a month, so you're probably gonna go private.
But they only
You'll-
go once a month? They only pick up once a month?
No, it's at the drop off.
Oh.
It's when you go. So if you are paying that amount of money, you only have very small amount of trash.
So
But that's
that's
a
not
separate program,
curbside
that's
pickup.
not,
No,
that's correct,
that's not-
that is not
yeah.
for us.
No, that's just the bags and you take it somewhere.
Right. But most towns do have that money that comes in from a bag program, you do have that in one account, which we do have. You
We do.
have the
Yeah,
account
We
that
do.
says, and I think maybe that just helps residents see that there is a bag money coming in. And if you do a flat fee plan B, having a flat fee of some sort, then it is also recommended that you do have that going into a special account,
yeah.
which normally you wouldn't.
Yeah,
Yeah.
for accounting
Right. It's just
purposes,
right.
yeah.
An enterprise fund, I don't recommend for a small town. It helps for a lot bigger when you have $350, like a full flat fee program, and you see the money coming in and the money going out. That is, there's a lot more administration in that.
Right.
And there's a lot more internal accounting to that I don't recommend that for the town of Townsend at this time. But for larger cities, it does work out well to be almost like the water department.
Yeah.
But not
Concord
for
does
this.
that. When I came from Concord, and their trash program is a enterprise fund, so it's self-sustaining. But they can make it work in Concord.
And that also is only 50% participation. That is, we're at 90%.
Right.
So,
I have a question about the bag fee. Okay, so you're talking 6 is too high. Is 450, is 5? What does that do to the number?
oh my goodness, that would be, it'd still be bad. 350 is the top in my area that I would recommend. So I would have started off as 250, but we couldn't in October. We had to go with 350.
And people paid it.
And people are paying it. So that is the top. I think we're already at that cusp.
How do you know that's the top? I mean,
We're already down to one bag a week. So my numbers originally were 1.5 bags per week, but Townsend has already dropped to 1. And so we don't want to get to 1 every 2 weeks, as he's already there.
And I'm already there too.
Right.
And me too.
Okay.
There's many people.
And so on average right now, we're doing 1 a week, and I would have said we would be at 1.5. So we're already at that point, and that's where I'm saying, do not go up 10
but
cents.
isn't that what you tried to sell to us last time, that the trash
It
would
will.
decrease?
But we are,
And the
we're
fees
paying
would
the-
decrease?
but you
we're
have to
paying the
have that
tipping fee.
perfect
Tipping.
line, because if you hit that item, then people leave the program and it's no longer efficient. So right now, we have 90% of the population participating in a great program, and you pay what you need. I have a family of 6 of us with dogs. The puppies make more mess than anybody. Most of the trash is from 4 dogs. And I put out more trash than you do. So I pay more, but I have a lot more recycling. So our program is good the way it is. So, and I think the residents will pay an override for trash if they know it's there. If they know it's not, it's in the budget and will stay there, you know? They just want to know the numbers.
I disagree. I think the override is not a sure thing right now.
And we can always go back.
And I don't
to-
think trash is the only issue. So to just concentrate on trash being the issue for the override, I think it's not wise.
And sometimes what I think was discussed last time is if we have to come back later, one thing fails, you just do an override on the trash. It could be done later. But I just say, right now, we have the most efficient program. If you add the fee, if you add 10 cents to the bag, we are at a tipping point that I don't feel is very efficient out of over 20 years' experience.
I do appreciate your expertise on this, and I do think it's a good program.
And
And it is up to the voters.
but I do think any increase in the bag prices or implementing a flat fee, I do see people leaving the program. And at that point, it's counterproductive. We don't get what we were expecting to get, and we've actually made ourselves worse off at that point. Because I think once people leave, it would take a lot for them to come back, I feel. Because once they leave, they're just.
Yeah, I guess that's the part that I'm not sure I agree with.
So
Because like you said, if I leave and I go private, you basically said, well, my number's gonna start at 600 and it's only gonna go up.
Yeah.
I mean, at that point, it may not take too much for me to then say, well, no, I'm gonna go back and get back on this program. Even though the fee is higher, even if the bags went up, because it's still, I mean, at $5 a bag, it's still cheaper.
Yeah.
To pay $5 a bag than it is to go private.
And I think it may be harder to come back to it if we lose the contract. Who's to say we're gonna
Oh,
get
yeah.
the same contract again?
Because they like to know that they have 85–90% of the population to make their numbers
Right.
work. If you are down to 50, it makes it a lot harder.
I have a question. So what happens when it goes up higher next year? Are we gonna be doing another override argument? Is that what we're looking at?
The budget it depends on, that's, I think, the residents' issue is there's a whole bunch of other bills in here too. You have all the other departments that want money, and you have unions and other bills and electric and.
But the trash is the biggest.
It is, we are gonna go up a little by little, but it's in there, and the numbers that we've been doing originally were just for 9 months. We're not even in a program for 9 months of the pay as you throw program. So we're still in the infancy, and we still have the grant to get. You guys haven't even received your $62,000 yet. All bills go up. I think that's what.
Anyone else would like to speak in reference to the trash?
I'm not sure if you can hear me now. I moved to a better spot. I hope it helped.
We can hear you now.
We had an override in 2001 of $600,000 specifically for trash. The value of that override now is almost $1.2 million. To say if we don't collect enough, we'll just have to go for another override is a little frustrating. And I do think, especially since our bylaws provide for a solid waste fund for trash fees, that we need to consider that more regardless of administration costs to do so. I think that putting trash into an account where the only thing it can be used for is trash will draw residents back into the program. And I think the reason a lot of people left had nothing to do with the cost of bags and everything to do with the lack of transparency that we've had. This is a very good opportunity to restore some of that.
It's always been known that when you do a 2.5 override, that you may do it for a specific purpose, but it always goes back into the general fund. So everybody's
exactly. That's the issue. That's the problem.
Everyone has always known that. There was nothing non-transparent about the override.
I didn't say that. You misunderstood. You misunderstood. Last year, the way it was handled when we voted for a trash contract, and then those funds were reallocated and everything, people were angry. And I think that drove more people away, political reasons, more so than cost. And I think, yes, that is the case. And that you just, case in point, it goes back into the general fund. So we've had an override for trash for $600,000. That value in our tax levy now is almost $1.2 million. And now we're doing another $300,000. And the response to what if we're short is we'll do another override. At some point, something has to give. Also, I'd like to know why we're not running it the way our bylaws say we should.
I just want to talk about lack of transparency in the trash program and the voting for the contract. What happened last year was that the override for the schools failed. And what that meant is the funding for the schools had to come into the general budget. The only place in the general fund to get the funds for the schools was with the trash. So I think it was more of a lack of understanding of municipal financing than a lack of transparency. I think that there was nowhere else. Where would the money to fund the schools have come from? Something had to give. And in order to come up with the 1.1 or whatever million it was. And so it came from the trash at the tune of 800 or 900, whatever was in the budget there, plus monies from stabilization. And oh, by the way, to pay for trash, we had to take another 200 in December out of the ARPA funds. They had to be reallocated in order to satisfy what the Department of Revenue said the town had to have. So it wasn't a lack of transparency. I think it was just more a lack of realizing that when the school override failed, the schools still had to be paid with money that was in the tax base, in the general funding bucket, the money that the town has.
I do fully understand that, but that's exactly my point. You're making the argument. You're making the argument for me. No, I understand that, but that's the point. If you remove it from the tax levy, those dollars go to trash and it frees up money within the tax levy for other things. But we're doing this halfway, and pay as you throw. The whole point is removing it from the tax levy, or at least a portion of it. And that should be up to the voters which way it goes. But when we're in a deficit like this, the trash money should go to trash, not. I think you're going to run into a problem, and you're setting this override up for a failure by doing this.
So just to be clear, Veronica, when that override took place and the override for the school failed, and we had to go through all of that to use those monies to pay for the school. How do you think that is sustainable? You can't keep taking money out of a budget that doesn't raise enough money to pay for the school. So there is revenue that we have to create from somewhere in order to cover this.
Yeah,
Carol. Okay. Because from a taxpayer point of view, and I didn't understand municipal funding, so when I voted for the trash, I thought for that override for the trash, I thought the town set that money aside for the trash.
In 2001?
Yeah.
Never.
No,
override is ever set aside for a specific purpose.
No.
See, but I'm saying as a taxpayer, not knowing how everything works.
Okay.
And I'm just saying, as a taxpayer, not knowing how town finances work. Okay, having no knowledge of this and going into an override, say for the trash, and I voted yes, I want my tax dollars to pay for trash. I, as a taxpayer, not knowing anything about town finances, think I'm voting for that money to be set aside specifically for trash. And I'm just wanting to point out, you probably have many voters here who have the same.
Oh, I bet.
And so,
but it's not being non-transparent when you tell them the override does not stay with that specific purpose from year to year.
I mean, if we
had
an override in 2008 for the schools, that doesn't mean that we have to continue every year to fund the schools at what the ask is.
So, but I think that it's a lot of not understanding on the taxpayer.
Okay.
That's
different from transparency.
Well, yes, I agree.
Which is my point.
Mary Jane?
I want to thank Carol for bringing that point up. And I think it's important that everyone watching and in this room realizes what the reaction was to her honesty, that she was acting as a taxpayer and she was by the board. And I think that that is huge with the town right now. There is a complete division of the board and the town because of that very reaction that you all had
for Carol. She is acting as a taxpayer that doesn't have information, that doesn't know. We don't all go to school for this. We don't all run for this. We come from a place of not knowing everything like you all do. And so we can't be attacked when we ask questions and we don't understand.
That wasn't an attack.
Well,
It was not an attack.
You're missing the point.
I know what she's saying. Everybody doesn't know. Even if we've told them the override, because the statement is made. When you vote an override for a specific purpose that it's needed for, and it passes, the only problem is it doesn't stay with that topic, issue, whatever, from year to year. It's an override just for that year.
You don't have to tell me this. I was not talking about the override. I was talking about the reaction and the disconnect between the board and the citizens, the taxpayers. It's the taxpayers' money. You all make the decisions, but there's a disconnect here. And I told you that before, the credibility.
Well, I'm really sorry for that, but there's a lot of people that don't get involved to know what's going on or go to the annual meetings every single year and listen to them. We can't help that. I've never been disrespectful to somebody's comments.
I mean, I just think that a lot of people don't understand the different departments, and I did kind of think maybe the local cable could just do a little thing about what is an override, what is an enterprise fund versus a revolving account versus just in the general fund. If people kind of fit their own money at home, the money comes in, the money goes out. You want it to stay in one thing of the vacation pocket, but somehow the roof fell and you have to move it from the vacation to the roof. I think they have to kind of understand that. It's only if you have an enterprise fund where stuff stays, and that's just, I think the only enterprise fund that I know of in town is the water department.
Well, ambulance receipts, but it operates a little differently.
Yeah, it's.
So
That's an
it's just like,
enterprise
some
as well.
people need to realize that those are just different types of funds, and to realize anything else in the budget is mom and dad's account.
There's two people online that have their hands raised. You want to recognize one of them, Lori?
Oh, I don't see any.
It's right. I gotta change this view. Let me see. Gallery, no. Speaker, no. Multi-speaker.
You just had that.
Under
You just had
participants.
Yeah. So there's CK, that might be Cindy King, and then.
Yes, that's me.
Okay, did you want to say something, Cindy?
Okay, yeah, I just want to say something. You know, it's great. We have all the people in the room that need to make these important decisions. Yes, you're on a very dangerous timeline right now. And like I think I say every year that we have override on the agenda, you need to, you people, the BOS or the select board and the FinCom need to be prepared for an override failure. That I'm not getting into arguing whether it's going to pass or fail, but you need to be prepared for it. When you're sitting at town meeting and you're going to have to not get defensive and blame somebody else for it or give excuses, but if you're not prepared at town meeting, the annual town meeting, for having a budget that incorporates a failure of the override, a finite, complete budget, we're going to have happen what happened last year with alleged mistakes in spreadsheets and changing of, and we need to have a finite, perfect budget for either a pass or a fail on an override. And you'll know the answer to that at the election, because people are that's the first place people are going to vote. And if it doesn't make it through the election, I don't think it's going to make it through town meeting. So just be prepared for both and not say, oh, we got to figure this out, we're going to call another meeting. Have the answers for us. The taxpayers are very upset out here and we need answers, and could have a decision made on that first week of May when we're at town hall with the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you, Cindy. We are working on it every day, believe me. every day. And there will be a fine line should it, not happen. And on the 16th, hopefully, we will be able to tell you exactly what will happen if the override does not pass. That is our goal.
There's somebody else.
Someone named Carrie.
Carrie, is there
Hi,
Carrie?
this is Carrie. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, great. Thank you for just taking my comment real quick. I just wanted to, I think, echo Carol actually, as a taxpayer. My thought was, my understanding, honest, and I work in finance, corporate finance, but anyway, when the override failed, my understanding was the school didn't get the funds. That's why teachers were cut. That's why programs were cut, et cetera, et cetera. So perhaps again, like to hear, and maybe I'm still misunderstanding, but the school was provided funds from what I'm.
Yes. Okay, can I?
So,
Let her finish.
okay. Thank you. Thank you. So again, I do think there's some misunderstandings. I agree with Carol. And to Dawn's point, also kind of earlier, the communication just really could be better, which I think will help the town. I don't know the answer on how that communication needs to happen because we're not going to get all the residents in these calls, nor will it be feasible to get all the residents on these calls because that would, of course, be a nightmare. But somehow, I don't know if it's a newsletter. I don't know what it is, but people definitely do not understand. So I just wanted to make that point and thank you for your time.
You can
Thank
start
you, Lori.
talking.
I'd like to answer that. I've asked Nelson to screen share. We've started working on the PowerPoint for the 16th. And I'm glad you said what you did because that is a realization that, yes, screen share that one, that we here at the table have, but you're right, probably the average everyday citizen doesn't. So this is a pie chart. This is the town budget. And if you look on the left where it says function type, it's general government, that's like town hall things, public safety, that's fire and police, education, public works, highway, human services, culture and recreation, that's your library, senior center, etc. And then there are things like debt service, the things the town has borrowed money for, fixed costs, which are things actually down at the bottom. That's workman's comp, unemployment, health insurance, etc. Other expenditures, which is just a catch-all, and intergovernment assessments, which we don't have so much of. But in any event, that whole pie, and it includes education, is part of the budget. That entire amount, Proposition 2.5, states that it cannot increase more than 2.5%. So when you look at the school budget, which is the purple, which is more than half of the entire budget of the town, if that goes up 7 to 8% or 10%, that has a huge impact on the rest of the budget, the part that you see here at Town Hall or at the Senior Center or at the library. So we had, actually for the past 3 years, we've had an override because of the school budget. And we all know very well why that is. It's because of the lack of 100% funding for regional schools and the funding formula, et cetera. But in any event, it has gone up a whole lot. And when an override fails, it has to be absorbed within the town budget. So in the
Right, doesn't the school make those cuts though? Sorry to cut you off, but that's what's being communicated.
The school cuts, but those cuts never get down to 2.5%. They're at 7%. They might go from 10 to 7 or from 7 to 6.75. But they never come down to 2.5. Wait, there's a question here.
Well, no, I think what she's kind of asking and getting to is the fact that last year Townsend failed to do the override. But Pepperell and Ashby passed the override, so we were stuck with the number that they wanted
Yes,
anyway.
we had to do the
And
high
that's-
number.
And I think that's the piece that she,
That was
that
it.
maybe
Yeah,
she's
but
missing.
we had to fit it within the 2.5% that we can bring in with taxes.
Right.
Didn't Ashby
And
not pass it?
No, they didn't.
No, they
Last
did.
year they did, they passed, when they, because the school did, I think there were two different overrides. The first one failed, and then they did a second one that
it
passed.
passed, yeah.
And it didn't pass in Townsend, but it passed in Pepperell and Ashby. So that, when Pepperell and Ashby passed it, that became the school budget. And the number that they were asking for from Townsend, even though Townsend did not pass it, we were out of luck and we were stuck with that number anyway.
Right.
And so we had to cut other places to basically come up with that number for the schools.
Or come up with more revenue.
And even the year, I think it was FY23, where we had an override, everybody else did, it failed, override didn't pass. That means the schools have to go back and re-examine their budget and come in lower. But there's no requirement for how much lower. So they can lower the whole budget by, usually they went down maybe 100K for the whole district. And then you know, it's not enough to fit the 2.5%. So for the past 4 years, at least that I know of, I don't know before that, but for the past 4 years, I know that we have had to absorb that cost. Now, some people say, oh, but if you looked at fire last year, it was 22% over. But ambulance receipts comes in from the fire department to offset that increase in their budget. And where 2 years ago they did 700,000, last year they did 900,000. So that offsets the bigger increase that you see when you look at the budget and go, oh my goodness, they were 22%. Why is that okay? Well, it's okay because they're giving back more to the town from the enterprise funds, which are monies that they take in from ambulance runs, mostly insurance funds that come into the ambulance department. So I guess if you don't have an understanding of that, I can understand why you might think the override failed. So we're all good. Everything else should stay, but it can't.
And just so everyone is aware, and you probably have done this math behind the scenes, North Middlesex, their request from us, it's 6.5%
this year
over last year. How do we, 2.5 is the magic number, 6.5. The math doesn't matter. That's 4% more. And it's 4% out of a over $15 million budget. So that delta is hundreds of thousands of dollars above and beyond what we budgeted.
Those are mandates.
Yeah, that caused that huge increase. Yeah, I agree.
Yeah.
So yeah, 4% is, it's a huge number. It's $600,000 more than we are able to pay.
Right, and it continues to shrink the operating budget for the town, all the town departments as a result, because more is going to the schools.
So isn't it gonna happen again next year?
It will. Yeah, that's part of the 211 program that they have going now, all the 211
So when does
regional
it get to
schools.
the point where we can't afford to live here?
Well, you won't be able to afford to live anywhere in Massachusetts.
Well, yeah, that's pretty much.
So it's gonna,
232 cities,
232.
towns that have the issue, the regional schools, 232 in the state. They're all going through the same thing we're going through.
I testified yesterday virtually to lawmakers. Brad Morgan, the superintendent, was there in Boston live in person with members of the school committee testifying about the school budget. So we're doing everything we can. We've sent letters in there. I testified, virtually yesterday. Brad Morgan, the superintendent, was there.
So was it testifying because the mandates?
The insufficient school funding that we are receiving.
And the formula.
And we need to change the formula to boost funding for school districts like North Middlesex.
Like transportation and things like that.
If I may,
Is that Christian?
yes, I had to step out and went to my cell phone, if I may, Mr.
Okay,
Chairman.
sure.
Um, I know that we went over about the topic about the trash contract. We, as the Board of Health, I can propose that it was talk about doing a survey, online survey about the people regarding their opinion about the trash contract, if they would opt or not, and what would they recommend. We can build up some sort of a survey monkey on the Board of Health's website, and get the opinion of the public. It could be anonymous, and get a sense of what the public thinks before the meeting, just to get some feedback, really, and before the voting and the meeting and all these things, and we can present it to one of your meetings as soon as possible. That I propose that we can do as Board of Health, and regarding the trash contract. And for the people to know, on the Board of Health website, there's information about all the trash contracts that were presented to us by Shaw's, and everything that people can access to it too. So I propose that we, the Board of Health, can do a survey monkey. I would have to sit down and figure out from when to when, and have that opinions voiced and presented to the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen on another joint meeting.
Christian, thank you for the suggestion and the offer. I'm not sure we can put the contract on your website, as it's not an approved or signed one.
No, it's not a contract. It's the same handouts that you had, not.
It's a proposal.
Oh, just,
It's a
Right.
proposal.
Town's proposal, I don't think that's not really,
okay.
for the Finance Committee and the Board of Selectmen can review it, but I don't think that's
I was gonna say,
not public yet.
So, but we can do the survey
We can
without
do the survey.
putting this
Mhm.
information up.
But how do you know that the people, when you put it in the census, you know the people you're getting back are Townsend residents? How will you sort out that you have Townsend residents and that they are voting once and only once?
That's technology wise, that's kind of out of my scope, but we can certainly, technology wise, we can try to do something that could be with the residents of Townsend. But that is something that we have to work with IT for that.
You probably, I would say that the survey monkey, you can't really do what you just said.
Right.
And so while it may not be a bad preliminary get a feeling, you probably do need to follow that up with, say, the census survey to really get
And
a
we're
more accurate.
yeah, census has gone out and most of them have
Yeah.
been returned already, so we're.
Okay, so
Yeah, we're
the
late
so
for
the
this
next one's
year.
done, when is
It's next March, February, March
Okay.
next year. It's kind of like, the only other bill you're gonna get is the.
So we should probably prepare to do that for next year then.
Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
we have a lot of things we have to prepare for next year.
Well, but
Yeah.
I think you have the best survey going on, what is it, April 28th? That'll be a survey.
I think I agree with that.
That's true.
All right, so, yeah.
I was actually
Of
on-
voters,
Yeah.
Yeah.
of voters.
Nothing like being.
There is.
Yes.
What we could do-
Proactive. Yeah.
Okay.
There's someone named Sean that wants to talk.
Sean?
Hi, I have a question for you regarding the budgets. If I understood it correctly, you were saying that the school's budget can go up year over year over year, and basically there's nothing that we can do about it, and that whatever it goes up to has to get absorbed into the town's budget. At what point does somebody, and who is that somebody, turn around to, whether it's a school or any other portion of agency or whatever you want to refer to it as, say you don't have the ability to continue to raise your budget until we give you the approval to do it. I understand there's certain things that are mandatory that might go up in cost and things of that nature. But if things go up in my household in cost, like my power, like my gas and things like that, I can't control those costs. But what I can do is I can say, well, I'm not going to buy these other things anymore because my finances, I can't just go to my employer and say every year, okay, my cost of living went up by 4.5%, so you're going to have to give me 5. They're not going to do it. They're just not. And so, I mean, at what point do we have the ability to stop the constant influx?
Well, last year, if 2 of the towns had rejected the override, the school would have had to come back with new budgets, and they would have had to keep doing that until overrides passed in 2 of the towns.
Correct.
So the override, I mean, by voting on the budgets, typically when the overrides are put out, because the school never can seem to get below the 2.5% increase, the towns vote on that. If 2 of the 3 towns reject the override, then the school has to come back with a new budget.
Is it possibly getting too expensive to be having 3 towns instead of just having our own individual school system?
Okay, I've been saying that for a long time, but it's a regional school system that before my time, or just when I got there anyway, that when they became a regional school system, they were getting money back and a lot of support from the state. And when they required or mandated certain things which have to do with special needs kids, all the regional school systems have that.
Or busing.
And the state did not adhere to or comply with the contract that they signed with the regional schools. Now we're fighting the state. So we can't get out of this contract. We can't get out of the regional contract. So the school basically is holding all the purse strings.
I think that's not completely accurate, though. I think you can opt out of the regional. I know you can't do it overnight, but there are 16 towns in the state of Massachusetts who have actually done it. So it can be done if people are committed to doing it.
But I don't think it's a select board
No,
decision.
no.
So it's out of this people
it's
here.
A school that would
There's a
have to
school
do
committee, yeah.
So
I think it's, well, the point being, you can get out.
no, absolutely, but but no one in this room
But
can make that decision.
I don't think that necessarily solves your problem.
I don't think that.
Yeah.
Well, no.
It may or may not, but we don't know, but
It's not sustainable. It's just not.
If I may, Ms. Chairman,
Yes, Christian?
can the board have adjourn the meeting for tonight, and we're open to participate in any other meetings that are able, since we're going our way out of topic, and I think there's things that are being talked about that are not related to the Board of Health. If we can adjourn the meeting and take it on at another time.
Sure. Did you want to adjourn your portion of the meeting?
Yes. I would motion to adjourn tonight's meeting
For the Board of Health?
for the Board of Health.
At 8:28 p.m.
Yes. I need Paul to submit a motion.
I submit a motion to adjourn the Board of Health meeting.
All in favor, say aye. Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
And Paul said aye as well. Thank you very much.
yeah, we'll get to them now.
Okay, go ahead. They voted. Yeah, Christian did and he did.
Did you take roll call votes?
Yes, they did.
Roll
Christian
call.
and then Paul did.
It's Dawn and Carrie again. you gotta call them
Thank you,
first.
Paul. Okay. Carrie? Carrie, you have your hand up. Did you want to speak?
Hi, sorry, I had to figure out how to unmute. I just wanted to bring up, back to the Ashby. That override for the school definitely did not pass.
It
So-
passed, it passed the day we had the town meeting in
By cutting
August.
a position.
No. It's kind of like that. It did fail at one time, but they were having a town meeting at the same time we were, or an hour earlier, and they got to that article and it passed. And that's why we had to do our changes. And that's where we started the Pay As You Throw program, initiated at that point because we were required to pay the assessment to North Middlesex at that point. So it had failed earlier, but it passed, like I say, the same night we were having a meeting on the override, a special town meeting in Great Hall.
Okay. Okay, I'm trying to stay up to speed. So this is so helpful because I didn't know any of this. And I am one of the residents who's really trying to stay informed. And so think about, I hate to say it, but I'm just going to say it, you know, the 90% of the residents out there that maybe aren't as trying to stay informed, like think what they think right now. And I'm trying to stay informed and I didn't know those details. So they're very helpful to communicate somehow to your town residents if you want future overrides passed, like all of this, you know, the town finances, like we need to be educated better apparently. So just thank you. And I'll let Don go.
I just want to say that come on April 16th at 7 p.m. at the North Middlesex Regional High School, and we will hopefully get the information out. It's still, 10 days or so before the town vote, which would give people time to do more research on their own if they wanted to.
Thank you. I'll be there. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
And then Dawn? No, she her hand. Yeah.
Hi.
Dawn, please.
Hi, thank you. I just wanted to say on SurveyMonkey, I don't know that it needs to be anonymous. You can collect names and addresses from the people responding if that helps to do something sooner, just to get some input. I know the community is eager to provide input. And also, I just
Lost you.
You're breaking up,
really
Dawn.
clearly represent that in our first budget that was presented, we actually reduced the school's budget over the prior year. So I just want to make sure that's really accurately represented.
No, it didn't. Maybe the increase redued, but the budget did not reduce.
Their budget didn't reduce.
The town meeting budget reduced the school's budget by 0.8% over the prior year. And then that's why the entire amount was for the school. I think it just needs to be clear that that was how it was done. It wasn't necessarily all the school's fault. They were given no increase.
Okay, John, I believe you were looking at the exempt line. That's the only line that goes down on the school budgets year over year. So if you added the two lines, the assessment plus the exempt line, which is the payment we're making for to build the school, that assessment is going down, or the exempt amount is going year over year because the amount that we're repaying is knocking it down, and you'll see a little decrease in that line again this year. But the assessment,
I'm saying at town meeting, the amount that was allocated initially prior to an override ask for the school was 0.8% lower than the prior fiscal year. So we gave them no increase, which is why the override amount was so high. And I just think that needs to be.
Okay.
we'll look at it. Yeah, it's kind of like we'll look at it, but my recollection is that it was a straight $0 increase, and it was equal to the year before when we did that override. Because we had worked the numbers with Eric at that point, to do that. So that, we'll look at it, but it shouldn't, that the assessment line should not have appeared lower. And again, yeah, we'll take a look at it. It could be in the book and it might have been in the motion, but I don't think so. It was always for zero.
Okay, are there any, Mary
Do we have
Jane?
a copy of the agenda for tonight? I don't have one. For the board of selectmen, I have the finance committee.
On the 16th, which is a week from today.
Yeah, the sixth.
Is it
Yes.
a question and answer, or is it just informative?
It's both.
It's both.
I mean, we're hoping to have
Open
the
forum after the presentation.
two microphones that people can line up at.
Okay.
So we get all the questions
Okay.
as opposed to,
Right.
you know, this, I mean, we're hoping.
So you just have them come down to the microphone.
Yeah, so we're doing a presentation ahead of time, but the thing that Nelson projected as part of that, we've been working on that. So, just so that people understand how the budgeting works.
And they'll be able to get up to the microphone and ask questions, just like we used to do. In Northern Brook, we have microphones on either side of the room and people can walk
Come
up.
down.
Will there be copies of the budget for people to look at? Is that, I mean, I would imagine you're not gonna go slide through the entire thing.
The
but-
omnibus?
Yeah,
I plan to, put it on the website, but I can have printed copies. And honestly, if that's what people wanna do,
I mean, I don't wanna
I'll-
print out hundreds of copies, cause that's just a huge expense.
Mhm.
But maybe if there are like five or 10 or so that people can come look at, or maybe even look at ahead of time, as opposed to during the meeting.
I plan to post it on the website.
Post it on the- okay.
Website pretty
Yes.
soon, and it would be the entire omnibus budget. And, I haven't figured out how I would.
What the format's gonna exactly look like? Are you gonna show like, okay, this was last year's line item, this is this year's line item?
I still haven't quite figured it out yet.
Okay.
Especially how to present the budget, because I mean, we've all seen it's 800 lines.
Right,
you
right,
know?
right.
And, you know, we can certainly go into that minutia of detail. Maybe some people will appreciate it. Some people probably just gloss over them, like this is
Right.
way too much. So I'm trying to find the balance.
Yeah,
You know,
I don't disagree with that. That's a hard balance to reach.
Maybe a salary and an expense for each as opposed to each
The
line.
great
I
subtotal
don't
lines
know.
versus
Yeah.
potentially, so it's kind of like maybe three files, one with the general government, the black lines in the omnibus budget. So
Yeah.
you get the big, and then a second one of the expenses and the expense subtotal and personnel subtotal of each.
Right.
Or,
And the cuts should.
and then the
override
cuts
not
will be,
happen.
yeah. Beside that, and then the last would be, a third version is the minutia of every line. If somebody had a budget they wanted a question, they could go in and look at that.
Or even if they have their phone, and that's the worst thing to look at it on, you know, you can get to it.
Right.
So.
Just a suggestion, we could have a QR codes and some to do that in movie theaters too.
Mhm.
They're really
Oh, that's a
big,
good
and
idea.
then you can do that so everybody can be on the same line on their phone.
That's a good
The
idea.
other thing is, I think people just wanna know what the override is of how, where is that gonna go and what the cuts are, so that could maybe.
Yeah, and
What are the current cuts before, Plan A, these are the current cuts from, and this is where that $600,000 is going to for the vote. And then have Plan B, if that override doesn't pass, what are the cuts?
yeah, and at that time, we're only able to kind of speak in general terms because the cuts that we were talking about involve personnel and unions. And, you know, we can't publicize, you know, we haven't even spoken to the unions yet to talk about it. So we certainly couldn't publicize that at a public forum before we even talk to the union. So those cuts would be in like more general terms because we're not even at that point yet. to engage with the unions to discuss what those.
We can make that point though too, right?
Yeah, I would.
I think definitely you want to make that point that whatever specifics you can't talk to because you have to negotiate with the union.
Correct. So it can be like kind of broad strokes, like, there'll probably be a reduction in, town services and town personnel. So, you might not, expect the level of service that you were used to, because now we have, less staffing hours available to service the public.
I have a question. Is it possible that we could find out, if we went to at one point you had talked about this, 10% right across the board, everybody. Is there a possibility that we could figure that amount out? Or is that totally?
Well, the math is easy, but actually implementing it is not, it's very difficult. There's 5 unions, and water is kind of its own like separate entity. You would be asking them to make a cut as well.
Ask everybody.
Right, and certainly police and fire would be part of that too. So
absolutely.
I mean, the math is easy to figure out what the savings would be. 5%, 10%,
Right.
whatever.
Would you be able to get that for us? Are you not just so informational?
Yeah, and we can do the math, but I think actually making it happen realistically is very, very difficult. It's across all 5 unions, people with a personal services contract, so everyone needs to agree to it. So it's kind of an all or nothing proposition, and
What would do you have a clue what the number would be?
Well, you could pretty much take all the salaries,
I was gonna
add them
say-
up and do a percentage, and there you have it. But the thing is, this is, in public safety, when you start to make large cuts, because the shifts still need to be carried and you just have fewer people, or people leave because they can't afford to have a percent cut, you wind up running up the overtime costs, and you come up with unbudgeted overtime, which has been huge in the town in the past.
But doesn't that make it kind of a pick and choose if you don't do it straight across?
It means that you keep the services that you have as they are, and you keep them affordable. So yeah, you could look at it that way if you wanted, but you have to figure out what's more important. Is it more important to have the services that you've come to expect when you come to expect them? Or is it better to be paying huge overtime costs for the services that you've come to expect?
I would just like
it's a trade-off, and I thought we could just close town hall on Friday and we'd be good to go, and in fact we're not.
You're not, yeah.
And so that's why Nelson went to talking to each of the departments and going that route with the expense cutting. And that's what got us down to where we need $325K to run the town. Of that 625 override, 300 of that is the trash. 325 is what we need to run the town after a decrease in expenses.
Is it 625 or 640?
625.
625.
It's actually 640 something, but we're that down.
We're there are numbers that aren't in yet.
Okay,
And
so will
we're
we have
confident.
those numbers by next Wednesday?
We should.
Hopefully.
Because
what
I think
numbers
people-
exactly?
So 625. I think people 640 at 640 or whatever it is.
We could have asked for actually it was 644 the day we
It
set
was-
the number.
Yeah, it was.
We could have set that
Right.
and said, this is the budget, and stopped and said, we're not going to look at any other numbers or any other decreases that come in. But we knew there were other things that were going to come in,
Because
and that it would get us down to 625.
I think that people, the biggest thing right now, people want real numbers.
They
And
are
we're
real.
going, it's hard to estimate a number, so they really want a real number.
I saw something posted, and I think people are trying to relate 625,000 to one line in the budget, or exactly what it is, rather than encompassing the whole budget. That's
It's everything in the budget.
and that's the thing, it's the total budget as it stands, but if you can say 300,000 for the trash, then it's 325 for the rest of the town, and those are the pieces.
That is what it is.
But again, we started, and it was 1.3 million that we were looking for. So if we take it back, that's really what we need to say is this was the ask in the beginning, and this is what we cut out before we started coming down to this other number. So you can see, what aren't you getting? And I'll still go with the pavement management plan. Yes, we have more Chapter 90 money, or whether it's the pay your fair share money that's coming in for the roads. I think that could be where the money came from for this year, but it's not a guarantee. And so our roads will continue to deteriorate. We don't have enough, we're not getting enough money in there to pave enough miles per year, that the roads are going to continue to wreak havoc.
That's one of the things that they're the kind of unseen things that people don't realize in the budget.
And that's what we're talking about is people didn't know necessarily what they were voting on when they were voting some of the overrides and how it was. Or when we did the work where we paid the school budget and went pay as you throw. With that, all of those things, they don't know what they're not getting if we don't tell them they're not getting it. So that's why I'm saying they don't. It's kind of like they don't know the street's budget was the highway department budget was cut by $250,000, so you're not getting that kind of money for your streets.
Plus more after Nelson asked each of the department heads to cut more expenses. So
exactly. So those are the pieces of if to totally understand where the budget is and how much it's been cut. It's been cut. Definitely that. About the same amount because we're down about half of the 1.3 million, not just these little pieces that we're trying to cut.
Yeah, and I'm hoping with the forum, we can better explain that, and more importantly, explain what the implications are if the override doesn't pass. Unfortunately, I think trash is one of the big expenses that it's right there. It's a very easy.
It's 50% of the number we just talked about, roughly. It's kind of like 300 versus 300.
Yeah, well, but we have to take into account the 62,000. So it's really a net decrease of 238,000. So that brings us to basically $387,000 that I'm working with internally right now. What do I cut to get to that amount? And it's not easy because we have to pick and choose where it's coming from versus, like a across the board type of decrease.
We would lose our library certification on an across the board decrease. And that's something that you really don't want to lose. So
can I ask a question?
Not easy.
Why did we try to get rid of the constable and put it over to the police department when the hourly wage for the constable is considerably less than the hourly wage for the police detail? And why did we do that?
We're not paying for a police detail for a constable. The police already do the functions of a constable.
Well, they would have to be here for the election.
But they're often there anyway for the election.
Well, I think they are paid.
I think they're dropped in. They're not paid. Only the constable was paid in the election budgets before.
And if
so
you
now,
have a police officer, you're paying detail pay, which is at least a minimum of 4 hours. Whether they're there or not 4 hours. So
but with no constable there will have to be the police presence.
And they're a lot more money per hour.
So my question was, why do we do that? in
I've
a
always
crisis
seen them at the
situation.
meetings,
Yeah.
the police
too.
officers.
Pardon me, I'm sorry.
I've always
But-
seen them at the meetings.
We're not
We-
saying that.
Annual
We're not
meetings, or
saying that.
special meetings.
But this is the elections, town elections. You don't see them at town elections unless they just come in to vote or they spend a little bit of time. But if we're not having a constable be the monitor in the room, then you're paying a full detail for the full 12 hours
doesn't
that
make
you're.
sense.
It was a policy change that was made
Mhm.
because of certain reasons.
That's what we're
And over a
asking. Can
period
you
of
share those
time.
reasons with us?
Not really.
Good to know. Okay.
But the
Betty has
police
a
can do
question.
this.
Right, they can do it, but it's gonna be
just
more
costs
expensive.
more
We're gonna, you know, so
We're
we,
trying to save money.
Is it okay for me to say something?
Yes.
Two things. Most of you know I am a precinct one. And during the elections, there is just one constable there during the day. And that's what it's been for many, many years. I think they're considered almost paid like an election official, I believe. Another issue, I'm just concerned where I'm coming from in my budgets. I have no idea where I stand. And obviously it's about time to start getting my band men together. Do I have any feel if there's gonna be any money for band concerts come July?
I mean, at the moment, your budget is intact at the moment, but I think if the override doesn't pass, we have to look everywhere for savings. So I don't know what impact that would have on band concerts. It's possible. I do understand you're making plans already for, for the schedule for the summer.
Again, I understand until there's a town meeting in May or whenever it is and
Right.
people vote line by line.
Right.
But the feeling is that perhaps there will at least be some money for band concerts and.
I don't think there's any discussion of getting rid of it completely.
right.
Oh, no.
So if that's your concern,
Yes.
I don't think, but I mean, but everything is on the table here, so I certainly can't guarantee that it will be,
I just haven't seen any figures and every time I try to watch it on T-Cam, it's always on something other than band concerts.
Haven't you two had a discussion already?
Not for quite some time.
Obviously
no,
not.
I think I tried to reach you the other day, I wasn't able to. But it was about band concerts and what you could possibly, be okay with in terms of cuts. That's what I've been trying to go around talking to folks. I have no desire of getting rid of it completely. But this is, again, a worst case scenario if the override does not pass, I don't know, because it's roughly 10 concerts, I believe, 10. So could you live with every other week or maybe something, 7 or 8 instead? That's why I've been meaning to reach out to you to talk
If
about.
worst case scenario came, we probably could cut down the number. I don't think every other week is advisable, you just have a shorter season.
She's right, yeah.
Okay, so, that's something you and I can talk offline, to see what makes the most sense. If every other week doesn't work, then, we can talk about that.
I mean, once I know what the money is, I just have to live with what that money is and schedule it accordingly.
Right, but we can certainly talk about it, but I think certainly scheduling, those cuts right now would be premature. But I understand you're working on that now, but, I don't wanna take away more than is necessary if we don't have to, so.
I have a question. Yeah, to Betty's point and to your point here, Nelson, I think it is almost time to, you've been telling, not you specifically, but we've been hearing FinCom that we're gonna do 2 budgets. We're gonna have the budget with and without the override. I think we do have to start thinking about that.
Well, I'm working on that now, and it's hard to get to that, to get to $387,000 in cuts.
I understand it's hard, but I really think we gotta make a push on this because, Betty came here tonight because she wants to know, and I'm sure there's 900 people out there who are voting who want to know what the difference is going to be. And I know as a FinCom member, I'd like to know what it is. We've been promised it for the past couple of weeks and we haven't seen it yet.
Well, to my point earlier, a lot of these cuts involve personnel, and a lot of the personnel
All right, let's say the
are,
ones that were not personnel, and then we can just take a bird's eye view of that, say 10% and get a feel for it. But I do think we have to stop saying if, and have that other budget. I really do.
If we don't get the override, it's probably gonna be at least 50%.
There you go, so that helps.
And I can't say that that's across the board.
Of course not,
I'm
but
just
at
saying
least you're
for this
giving her
one.
a real answer. Yes.
And the sad part about that, and we've had this discussion, is that we have other members of the community that participate on those Thursday night band concerts. They have booths, they have functions that they do, and they raise money for their groups. So everything we do is far reaching.
I'm just concerned too, if people that normally play for me on a Thursday night are offered opportunities to play somewhere else. Like,
Yes,
oh,
exactly,
I have a Thursday night
exactly.
job in Townsend. I mean, I realize you people don't have a crystal ball and you're not making the decisions, but I just would like to know what the feel is, which you're basically giving me an answer. I'm probably not gonna be at 0, but I may not be 100%, and we'll just have to deal with what happens down the road.
yes, and that's why I thought every other week or basically half. Well, I understand that, but essentially it would be half, half the number of concerts. That's probably, I feel like,
We're not touching Memorial Day yet.
well, no, I didn't suggest that.
Well, we're all set through June 3rd of this year.
Right.
Right.
So Memorial Day is covered.
Well, the plan is
Right,
going to
but-
go between now and June 30th of this year.
No, you're safe through June 30th of this year, correct?
And that's why way back I mentioned in a previous meeting about Memorial Day and band concerts used to be tied together.
Yeah.
And, I may be able to shave some money possibly on Memorial Day. But band concerts is kind of a flat fee, pretty much. I mean, give or take a little per concert. So, and I don't need to take up all your time. I just want to know where I stand.
I think it's great that you showed up.
Is it feasible for, like, if she could make Memorial Day cheaper, that she could use some of that money to supplement a band concert, if that is cut in half? I'm just talking here.
I mean, we can be creative and move it around, move the budget around to make it work, sure.
Don, you were shaking your head.
I just FY25 versus FY26. So yes, the FY26, which it's actually in
What we're talking
26,
about?
no, we're talking
next
about
year.
we're actually talking FY26. So it would have to be in that budget, not this. There's nothing we can do with the Memorial Day budget for this year.
No, that's it,
Oh,
that's
there's a
it.
Memorial Day
Next
next year.
year.
So that's what I was saying.
Well, that's a big holiday. I think that needs to be, we need to have Memorial Day.
Oh, yeah, sure.
But it could be fundraised differently.
Yep.
Yeah, that too.
What about if you started a little bit later, Betty? I mean, you have Memorial Day, and maybe you don't start until like the last week in August, last week in June, and then you only miss 2 weeks in between. And that would be, a little bit.
Again, through June 30th of this year is pretty
Okay.
much.
Yeah, she's all
set.
set.
That's the FY.
Yeah.
And
Yeah,
like
right.
July,
Yeah.
end up, the town ends up only giving me money for 5 concerts. Then I just go the first 5, July into August. Well, maybe I wouldn't, only because I might need to save them for the next year.
Well, you never know what's from year to year, we don't know what's gonna happen.
Right, but then she's saying she wouldn't be covered for next June,
Or next year.
Right.
right? Is that-
Yes, sir.
Oh,
Yep.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
Because this budget's covering in June.
Right.
Okay, yeah, right,
That's-
right. Okay,
Thank you.
We didn't.
all right.
Thank you, Betty.
Thank you, Betty.
I'm gonna get going. Already late.
Was already past my.
Yeah. Yeah, we started.
Okay.
Any other questions on finance, anything else you'd like to talk about?
Yes, I have a whole bunch of stuff. I didn't realize it was gonna be a trash meeting. So, a couple of things that as a FinCom person, is it possible that we can get the line items broken down so we can see what you know that we don't know? Example. So let's just say we have insurance, for example. So what are we paying for liability insurance, house insurance?
All down?
Yeah, so that we have a clue.
Well, health insurance is its own line item.
Okay.
As is
And
liability.
liability is its own line item, but under liability, there's property liability, I think there's,
Workman's comp.
workman's comp,
And
and there's a third one,
Vehicles.
that's in the property liability.
Property.
Yeah. So we can get you the actual expenses if that's what you're, if that.
Yeah, just so we have an idea, because we just deal with those kind of blanket.
Yeah, they are in there, and we asked for that, especially after last year when the workman's comp came in with the extra 6,100 or 6,900 requests.
Oh, at the special town meeting?
At the special town meeting.
That's because of the audit, and I think that varies based on who goes in and out, what happens.
Yeah, so they do an audit, and if they see that we have a lot of claims, and those claims are costly, then, you know, the workman's comp insurance company is like, oh, this is kind of above and beyond what we were expecting. You have to pony up some extra money.
Okay, and then, John, where did we stand in the FinCom with the 5-year budgets? I mean, are you getting anywhere? We broke it down to 3 years.
We broke it down to 3 years, but I started on the recap today. To go out the 5 years. It's kind of like we weren't getting it, so I figured I'd start.
Oh, how did we get that instituted? I mean,
well, it's.
I mean, we can't keep being reactive every year.
Right. No, we need it. It's kind of like it's in the.
Is it a policy that we get?
It's a policy that we get a 5 year.
It's a policy?
It's a policy. In the budget.
And we're not getting it?
Correct.
Well, okay, so how does that work?
I can work on that over, the summer to get that up and running. I think DLS already has templates, kind of already pre-established that you just sort of enter in your information. But I guess at that point, when, the most important thing when you project out, even, 2 or 3 or 5 years out is the assumptions. That's what, but, that basically is asking me to have some sort of magic crystal ball. And, I have, certain things I can kind of predict, salaries, I can have a general idea of what we can afford and what we're willing to pay. Other things, energy costs, I mean, if I had a crystal ball on that, I wouldn't be doing a town administrator, I'd be trading oil futures or something.
No. It's, you have to make the assumptions, like certain revenues, cherry sheets, even the tax levy is 2.5. Those are fixed. Some of the other things, the pay as you throw grant isn't going to be there next year, so that money goes away. The money that's not in the budget this year, that not showing as an expense, that is say $80,000 lower. Next year, we have to take today's, put in, are you going to do a 4% or 2.5% on each?
Yeah, so when you make those little tweaks here and there, that changes the out years. So I agree, it's helpful, and I will make it a point to get something up and running, starting this this summer.
I was trying to do it, and I did the recap sheet, because if we put and receive the $625,000 override, that you can project out, and the gap is still getting bigger, and that's figuring the schools only at say 4%, not, it's kind of like, and so those are the pieces that are in there. If we're asking for the 625, we're still gonna have gaps when we get to next year or the following years, but they're not growing by the significant numbers if we don't get the 625 override. So if we can show that, of if we get the 625, yes, the 625 will continue to grow with the rest of the tax levy. You can see that where the gap is, and is it going to be big enough that we're looking for it or not looking for another override coming out? And again,
I'll see if we can get something together before town meeting or, you know,
I'll send you the file that I did. All that I did is I copied it out. I brought the columns and I said 2.5%, and sometimes they added 80,000. Sometimes you can do it in the formula, but I was just doing it with that. And because it's formulas, you can always go back in and make different assumptions with it and how we're going to get there. But like the 200,000 for that is free cash going to the schools this year. That 200,000 may not be there next year.
Right.
The 200,000 won't be. We start out in the hole.
Exactly. So those, you know, so that those are the pieces that we have to take into account. If what we're doing this year, how is it going to look when we get to next year?
I think if we get the override, I think it will help.
I don't think we should keep saying that. I think we have to be realistic about the fact that the override may not pass. I'm not kidding. I think.
What would be your answer? What would be your answer?
When it doesn't, if it doesn't pass on the date, what are you guys gonna do? Just say, oh, whoops, it didn't pass. What are we gonna do now?
Oh, no, we have a plan.
Well, we're asking to know what that plan is.
Well, I already told you, we're working on it, but we don't have, this is the third time I've said it in this meeting. It's personnel involved, there's unions involved. You know, we're still working those details.
So what's the deadline date that you get to talk to the unions, or you do not do it till after?
We have to wait and see if the override passes.
We can't talk to them now because basically that's, you know, throwing up all kinds of alarms when you're basically scaring people at this
Well, you've
point.
already done that. Let's be honest. You
Well,
scared the daylights out of the personnel and the staff. Everybody's talking about it. Let's be honest here. You've done the 20%, 10%, this.
Around collective bargaining.
There, you know.
All right, there's a laws, but you've already put out, there's gonna be a 20% cut, it's gonna be 10, you scared the staff. Let's be honest about that. So we're just asking, I guess the answer, why am I even talking? You don't have a plan if it doesn't pass, correct? So you can't share with us the
No, that's
FinCom.
false.
So we can't, all right, you do have a plan,
Yes,
but you're not gonna share it with FinCom, so we can make recommendations on it, correct?
that is correct.
Okay, just so we know where we stand.
They are
It's
personnel.
personnel,
Well,
Like
you know,
Nelson said.
so.
now we know where we stand. Before, we've been told you're gonna give us a second, and now you're telling us you can't / won't because of personnel. That's good for us to know.
I mean, there's
that
a
is
plan,
what we
there's a
have
plan to
always
make the
said.
cuts.
No,
you
that's
know.
not what you've always said. That is not. You have told us at least 3 times that you were gonna give us the budget if the override passed and if it didn't pass.
You will have it before town meeting. if it
How far in
didn't
advance?
pass.
Are we gonna do an 11th hour and we've got 5 minutes to look at it?
Well, Jerry Lynn, I'm sure
Has
can,
told me that that's how it happens, and I don't think that's
And-
smart.
in the past, there haven't even been, well, that's not true. Since Eric came, there were meetings regularly, similar to what we did.
Changed all the way-
Prior to
all the way
that,
up.
there weren't. There were several years where, because the only requirement is for the Board of Selectmen to get it to you before town meeting. That is the only requirement in the budget. Once all the other things happen.
That's a tough situation.
It is, and it's especially tough this year because it's personnel and it's collective bargaining, and you cannot bargain until there is something to bargain, meaning the override fails. And so Nelson has already met with Labor Council. There's a process that has to be followed, and until that's the fact, until it's real, you can't go in and say, well, these are the people we're going to cut. Because that's as bad as us looking at and saying, we're going to do 20% and see what happens there.
Well, okay,
Obviously,
now
the
we know.
staff should be frightened because if it doesn't fail, we need an additional 387,000 that the majority of will come out of salary.
Well, I think the staff is That's right. I think that you guys did very well. Yeah, let's get to that.
No,
Yeah.
well, thank you. We are not, as you saw on that chart, the school is 57% of our budget. Then you take another, I don't know, 6 or 7%. The cuts are going to come from about, I don't know, 8% of the most of the budget. That's where the cuts will come because it's too expensive to take it from public safety.
What does that actually mean? It's too expensive to take?
It means that, well, look at the BVA for the last, look at FY20 and look at FY21 and look at the unbudgeted overtime numbers for police and fire. That's where I would look. And then maybe you'll have your answer. It just gets really expensive because you have to pay overtime. And if you saw the contracts, overtime is much more expensive than straight time. And if you don't have the staff and you still have to provide 24-hour coverage, it gets very expensive. FY27 without an override is a whole different story because staff will be at bare bones in FY27, and then there's nowhere else to go but to look at public safety and the library where we lose our certification and therefore can't check out books anywhere in the state of Massachusetts, don't have any online services. So I mean, I don't know what to say. The override is needed. We wouldn't be asking for it if it wasn't.
Well, I understand that, but.
Oh, we got hands up.
I'm sorry. May I ask
Has her hand up.
I'm sorry. This is Carrie Gallagher again.
Yeah,
I understand the sensitivity with the, you know, if we're talking positions being cut, it sounds like these are your plans if it doesn't pass. For the town meeting presentation, I do feel like it's important the town knows exactly what those positions are. It can't be not shared. It just absolutely cannot be not shared. It's not going to pass otherwise. If I know these, you know, I don't know, you know, if it's the superintendent of, you know, the public works, whatever it is, like I need to know who those positions are so I can make an informed decision that yes, that is a critical role, a critical contribution to our town that's absolutely necessary. I'll vote for it. But if I don't have that information, you know, I understand the questions of the finance committee here.
You're asking the finance committee. Okay.
As previously stated, we're not involved in that. It's personnel. We can't tell you. It's going to involve negotiations with the town administrator, the labor attorney, and we're not going to see them until after those pieces are completed.
So just to confirm, the town won't know the positions impacted at the time of voting. Do I have that correct?
No, I don't know if it's at the time of voting, or it definitely won't be for the 16th.
It's not going to go well if you don't have. I'm just going to say that. Expect an uproar.
But you just can't. You can't get to the point.
And I understand the sensitivity. I do.
Right. It's kind of.
Did the superintendent state exactly what teachers would be reduced, or did the superintendent just state the number of teachers that would be reduced?
Well, the superintendent was able to say teachers, you know, and other very specific line items, line items. And we knew what schools. We knew what schools. We had enough. Like, of course, we don't know the exact teachers, but we knew the departments.
So that where the school district has, I don't know, I'm guessing 16, maybe 32 eighth grade teachers, and can say we're getting rid of 4 eighth grade teachers. We're in the position where we have at most really 3 people in a department Most of the time it's 2. And so it becomes a little more, what we will be able to say, and Nelson can talk more to this, is so many full-time positions, so many positions cut at 50%, full-time positions going to part-time, or maybe going from 37 hours to 20 hours or 25 hours.
19.
That we'll be able to say. 19 gets tough.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the town is self-insured for unemployment,
That's right.
which means that anybody that gets laid off, the town within the general budget pays for the unemployment for that person, and we're required to do that. We do that so that we don't have to pay into the state fund for unemployment, which would be more expensive for us. And so where we can talk in general terms in the same way that the superintendent did, we won't be speaking in exact terms.
Okay, I have a hand raised. Callie, did you want to speak to that?
Oh, Jesus.
Oh, I just wanted to mention that we cannot disclose necessarily which departments or positions would be before that is disclosed to the employee, and there are obviously notification requirements in regard to that. I also was going to mention the unemployment, but that's already been mentioned. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Kelly. Cindy?
Yeah, I need to reiterate and repeat what Carrie Gallagher said. And I'm going to say it a little differently. I think it's going to be very ugly next week if you're not going to be presenting the budget. If you're just going to talk in circles like you're talking tonight and that you've talked in every other meeting you've had, well, we're not sure and we're still going to negotiate. We need the override. We really do. And we really need it to pass. And, we're really, we don't know what we're going to do. And I don't even think you're going to know what you're going to do after town meeting. It sounds like even if the override doesn't pass, you have no clue. And you refuse to even disclose any thoughts you're having, even with the FinCom, and you certainly have no intention of discussing it with the town next week. I think it will, if you don't cancel that meeting, it's going to be an ugly scene because you cannot give the presentation like you're talking tonight to the town. It is not going to go over well. I'm not even going to go because I don't want to be there for what I think is going to happen. So good luck.
Okay, well, thank you, Cindy.
Great
I always
show.
thank you for your comments. And I would just like to go back to what we did before March 10th. A full month and through March 1st of a 7-hour summit jointly with the Finance Committee, speaking to all the department heads. And the ask was, we knew that we needed 1.3 million. We knew it. We split it up between the school and the town for March 10th meeting so that we could explicitly tell people what the override was for. We were blindsided. Maybe some of you knew what was going to go on, but we were blindsided with the amendment that was made on the floor that has left us basically devastated since March 10th. So what we're trying to do is, now that we've absorbed the school part of the 1.3 million into our own budget, we now have to find the rest of it within our own budget. It's not there. It's not there. And we've tried many, many hours now discussing what is going to be the best way to present this to the town so that we can be clear as to what's happening legally. We can't disclose positions, as Veronica pointed out. The school didn't disclose who, what, where, what department, just said a bunch of people and how many. So I don't know what more we can do to be clear of what constraints we have in letting you know that we need a furtherly cut budget of 625, and that's just to maintain with cuts already in our budget.
Thank you, Lori. I do think what you said was very, very important, and we should all listen to her. She said the Board of Selectmen was devastated by how the town voted. Guys, you're not listening to the voters. That is absolutely what happened that night.
We've been in this process for 5 weeks together.
We've been waiting and waiting. You've been telling us you're gonna give us something and we don't get it. And to be devastated at a town meeting means you do not have, you're not in touch with your constituency if you're devastated. 50-50 is good, okay, but devastation means I'm not listening to you.
It totally changed.
No,
what
with
we
the people
presented
didn't
and what we
change.
talked with for 5 weeks totally changed that night when the entire school ask was taken out of free cash and out of our budget. What were we supposed to do? We've been working on
You're
that
not
ever
listening.
since.
You've got to listen to the constituents.
I pay taxes here. I'm a resident. I'm involved here. I've donated a lot of my time for the town. Okay?
Are you?
I don't want anything bad for the town. All you've done is criticize.
No. I have asked questions, and because it's important that people have information, and the only way they can get it is by asking questions. And a lot of people are afraid to ask questions. I talked about this at the summit. I happen to be a person who's not afraid to ask questions, and I will continue to do it. And I'm sorry if it offends you, but questions are important to get information.
Yes. And we're trying to give you the answers that we have, but nothing satisfies you. Nothing. It doesn't matter what I say. We can't give you certain information.
Okay, do you guys have the budget that Nelson has been giving you pretty much right before every meeting? Before every meeting, you've gotten the budget. You've seen the expense reductions on the lines, correct?
Yeah.
You understand where the 625 ask is being made, correct? Or do you not understand the budget at all?
No, we get it.
Then you say you don't have it?
The second budget, the one you keep telling us you're gonna give us, if the override doesn't pass budget, that's what I'm talking about.
And do you not understand?
I get it now, but I wish you hadn't said it, that we were gonna have two, because I've been waiting.
There are legal implications, and to say anything more would put the town in legal jeopardy.
Then you shouldn't have told FinCom that you were gonna have a second budget for us to look at in the event that the override did not
expecting,
pass.
and in the
We were
last meeting,
expecting it.
you saw me start with the trash of how do we fill that 640 gap that was in there? And that's where we started taking out the trash money, the revenue, the expense, and the pay as you throw. That was our first cut at it, and that was.
And we talked about the HR.
And that was to get down to 625 from 640?
No, that was to start on the 640. The last one we had, the last recap was at 640. It was not to 625 yet.
Right,
The
but there
override.
would have been a problem if the ask for the override was for 675 and the recap said 640. I could understand people being up in arms about that. If we had said, let's go for a 675K override, but we only need 640. We asked for less than that.
Right, and so it still had to come down, but
which is possible.
We hadn't seen anything, so we started working on if how do we get from the 640 down to a 0 if the override fails, and that's why we started.
You know, the trash is the
trash
is the first. You know,
right.
It's almost like you said half of it,
right?
But you know, it's the other parts are more sensitive. Again, it involves personnel. They haven't even agreed to it yet. You know, what we're doing behind the scenes is our best attempt at, you know, balancing the budget. We still need buy-in from them. They need to come to the bargaining table with the town to agree to those changes, and there's no guarantee that's going to happen. So if I could share it with you, I would, but it's sensitive, we would get in a lot of trouble from a legal perspective. So, I would love to share it with you, but, I have my hands tied at the moment to do that.
Let me add, I have a slightly different question. So we have contracts in place with, you said 5 unions, right?
Correct. And all the various personnel services contract.
When those, I assume those contracts are expiring on a staggered basis, that they don't all expire in the same year. Is that correct or incorrect?
The police union expires this June, end of June, and the other 4, I believe, all expire June of next year.
Okay, so we have 4 expiring next year.
Yes.
At the end of this coming fiscal year that we're coming into.
Correct.
So when we need to negotiate new contracts, is that something that you do with them, or does that involve more than just yourself?
Typically, the TA is on this side of the bargaining table, and then it's the union rep, and typically there could be someone from HR, possibly someone from finance or the select.
Okay, so some of us could be involved in that negotiation.
Absolutely.
Now, when we have that negotiation, assuming that we're facing a similar fiscal cliff to what we're facing now, can we make position cuts at that point without putting the town in legal jeopardy and unemployment jeopardy and things like that, saying, okay, we're finishing this contract, and the next contract, rather than 5 positions, we're only gonna have 4 or 3.5 or something like that?
It's probably a little bit tougher, because unless there's clearly a problem in front of you, and the problem right now is the override, you're kind of speaking in kind of nebulous terms at that point with the union. So again, unless you can actually clearly state that there's a problem right here in front of us, they might not be receptive. You can always ask, because we're at the bargaining table. You can ask anything really, but if they don't see an actual override in front of them, there's not much teeth to that argument.
Well, I mean, the argument is we've done an override now 2 years in a row. We can't do another override this year.
Yeah.
So we've only got this much money that we can put in.
Yeah.
And
so at that point, you'd probably be very tough on the COLA and the step increases. Probably not to your original point of we're getting rid of a position, for example. That might be easier if, say, the position is vacant, because there's not an actual person involved.
Yeah.
That might be an easier thing to negotiate. But typically, you would start with the COLA and the step increases. You would give very small percentage increases.
That doesn't really help us.
It doesn't help us this year. I fully agree. I fully agree.
This next fiscal year.
It doesn't help,
budget.
right? And I wasn't asking that question to try to help this year. I guess I'm asking that question more looking forward to future years where
I get it.
we don't really see a path where we're going to get out of this mess.
I get it.
It may end up being that the COLAs and step increases for the next round of contracts will be less than what's currently
or eliminated.
Well,
it's possible. There are rare instances where there's no COLAs for a year or 2 or even 3 years.
I mean, I've worked plenty of years with no increase.
Right.
Exactly.
So, but all that has to be bargained at the table, and if we can show that the town is in a very budgetary constrained environment, then our best offer might be a very small increase or even none, perhaps.
And if they reject that, does that mean basically they go on strike and the town shuts down at that point?
No, it probably would go to mediation, and at mediation, whatever is decided, both sides have to live with at that point, because you've basically taken the decision making out of both sides, and you've agreed to have a mediator, whatever decision they make, or come down with, both sides have to agree to that. We never want to get to that point. That's really when you're at an impasse and, you know, no one can get anywhere. Yeah.
Jerry has a comment.
I do have a question. When it comes to negotiations, is there a policy set as to say there's 4 people or 5 people on negotiations, and what department they be from, like a board of selectmen, finance, Nelson? How does that work?
I don't think there's a prescribed makeup of the negotiating team.
You think there should be?
I mean, you would have to agree on a policy.
So another policy. Yeah.
I mean, typically the TA is always on one side of the negotiating table.
Do we have a labor council there at the same time?
Not usually at the same
No,
time.
usually no.
No, okay.
Unless required.
So is there a way of getting a policy in this so there's at least 5 people in on this, not just the normal 3, or, you know, a regular 3, excuse me?
I mean, we can work something out.
Can we maybe pull Callie in on this?
Who?
Kelly, the HR.
Well, I just thought maybe a finance person could be put on.
No, I think she might have some insight in terms of.
Finance is appointed. That's
Well,
different.
Yes. Input as far as since I joined on with the town, and union negotiations that were had previously were always conducted with the TA, the HR person, myself, and the union stewards. And then last round, we had a different representative, and this year coming up, I'm not sure about the police union because that's the one union agreement that I wasn't participating in, but the other 4 union negotiations I did participate in. And I would imagine when those come up, then again, the following year would probably be Carol Markman, unless we have someone else assigned to us. Though that person, I mean, the representative we had before was not participating in the initial negotiations. That was the TA, HR, and the conversation.
I really think that one of the people on FinCom should be on it. I really do.
We can talk
we're an
offline. Right?
advisory board.
Right.
But you are an advisory board that is appointed by the moderator.
That doesn't mean.
What does that mean?
What does that mean? I mean, that doesn't mean that we couldn't have an
It
opinion
means
on it.
not, well, no, anybody can have an opinion on anything. It's more having to be a town employee or an elected official. But we can look at that.
I was gonna say, the negotiations coming out of it have an impact on the budget, again, in the 5-year.
They do,
plan.
that is
And it's
true.
kind of like, and so the view of it, how it impacts the budget, if we've got that 5-year plan, we can plug in the numbers and see, is it gonna work, is it not gonna work?
It's never happened that way before.
Exactly.
But
Okay, I've got 3 people.
May I add something here? This cat.
Just a moment, please.
Yeah.
Just a moment, please, because I have 2 people before you and I want to be courteous. Irene?
Oh, no, I meant that there's hands over there.
Yeah. Just let Carol
Okay.
finish her thought.
Okay, Callie, sorry. Callie.
Hi. Sorry about that. If you want to let the other person go ahead first, that's fine.
No, you can finish your
You
thought
finish your
because we're talking about union negotiations.
I don't think it's necessarily a bad thing to have someone else in the room. I do wonder, though, however, how union stewards would feel about having someone from FinCom in the room. I mean, being a union steward, obviously advocating on behalf of employees, and clearly, you know, the administrator is there to represent the town's best interests as far as the financial impact. Therefore, the employees, the TA and FinCom have the same objective. I think it would be perhaps an imbalance to have too many people in the room that would represent the town's interests, which may conflict with what the steward believes is best for the employee. And that is all. Thank you.
Okay, Dawn, Dawn Priest. Is your hand
Hi.
up?
Yes, thank you. I actually raised my hand when we were talking about the amended motion. Obviously, I had something to do with that. So that's what I was raising my hand to respond to. This gets like personal. It's not personal. I don't even know any of you. Just from a math perspective, I wanted to just share. This is what voters see. They see that we went in with a 1.3 million number for round numbers, 600 school, 700 town. We see that 200 is funded out of free cash and taken out of that number. And the town has made about $250,000 in cuts. If the town needed 700,000 and made 250 in cuts, that's 450. If we devastated the town by putting the school into that adds 411 to it. That's $861,000. We're talking about closing a gap of 325, 387, somewhere in there for town services, but we can't follow the math. And so it feels like we were being asked in the first place to vote for money that wasn't actually needed because we can't track it back. We can't track any of it with the numbers that have been given. The 640,000 budget number was just reached on April 3rd. We've been getting copies of the budgets all along. And at Budget Summit, it was said, we'll remove the pavement program for trash. And then it was, no, we're going to keep the 250 the school doesn't need and tell the voters that's for trash. You discussed talking points and the story to tell the town. And this is going to be a big part of the problem. No matter what happens, if an override makes sense because it's clearly presented, I will be the first person out there advocating for it. But math doesn't have feelings or personal attachments, and when it's not easy to follow, and I understand it's been said transparency is just a buzzword. It's not, though. And to voters, it means being able to follow the simple 5th grade math of the addition and subtraction. I don't understand how we went from needing a $700,000 override to making 250 in cuts and absorbing 411 from the school and ending at 325 to 387. So if we're feeling like we're being asked for money that's not necessary, you're going to have a very difficult time getting anything to pass. So I think we need to face the problem from the same side of the table. The problem is the financial situation. And instead, we're across the table looking over the problem. And I think that I think a lot's getting lost in translation. And I'm not saying it's intentional non-transparency. I don't want that to be how it comes across. But when you look at the math, it doesn't add up. So we need more information. And I think if that information can't be provided for whatever reason, it's just not going to work.
Okay, Dawn. I've got Veronica, please.
Okay, so I'm just going to take a quick crack at the math. So at town meeting, roughly 1.3, sorry, I'm not doing exact numbers, 1.3 mil was needed. All right, 200 when the school budget got absorbed in to the town budget and 200K from free cash went out. That dropped the 1.3 that was now needed for the town, not including the schools, dropped by 200K, 1.1 mil. Cut out the 250 for the pavement, 850. We're asking for a 625 override. We have already made 225K of cuts, all from expenses. If we have to, if we have to live without an override, we need to make an additional 387 to make it work.
Including
the trash is another piece of it. Yeah, and then we have the pay-as-you-throw grant, which we won't have as revenue. So the numbers are there. you know, I'll add a slide to our presentation to show that. That might be a good suggestion. So.
Okay, thank you, Veronica. Callie, your hand is still up. Is that for a reason?
I think she just forgot. Did she forget to put it? Oh, she forgot
Okay.
to put it down.
All right,
Okay.
thank you.
I think maybe we can.
Okay.
So have we exhausted our
Evening.
exhausted our time?
I think so.
We didn't set a time limit.
Would I make a motion to just adjourn the finance committee?
Yeah.
We
let's
would,
do that.
yeah.
All right, I will move
We have
that
other
we adjourn the finance committee joint meeting with the board of selectmen
Second.
At 9:39 p.m.
at 9:39 p.m.
Okay, just a quick roll call vote.
Joan Bazika, yes.
Mary Jane Churchville, yes.
Carol Houses, yes.
Dave Walker, yes.
Don Hayes, yes. Unanimous. The finance committee is adjourned from the joint meeting.
Adjourning the finance committee?
When's our next meeting?
We're gonna have another meeting?
No, can we adjourn the?
You do
Is
adjourn the
that-
finance
that's what
committee
you
as
just-
well separately?
Do we
or
have
not?
to do a separate?
You
just
did
yours.
the
We did.
finance
Okay,
committee.
that's
Oh,
we did.
okay.
We're gonna have another meeting. We're gonna have a meeting without the board.
Okay, it's late.
I guess.
I passed
We
my
can,
bedtime.
we can. Go try to-
No, I mean, not right now. I mean,
Yeah.
like schedule.
We don't have one scheduled, but we need
Yes,
to,
we
we
need
need
to,
to
yeah.
schedule.
Okay.
Good night, everybody.
Good
night.
Good night.
Okay.
Do you want me to just make a motion?
Planning board.
What are you doing?
To adjourn the joint.
No, to do 3.1.
No, I am.
But it depends on.
I have a motion. Do you have this?
Yeah, are you gonna correct the motion? Just to support the letter?
Yeah, not
For
the
him to
meeting,
sign the
not the
letter.
meeting.
Okay, I have two motions here. Which one am I supposed to make?
Yes, ma'am.
The letter of support.
Wanna go back here all night, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay,
Carol.
that's the name.
That's it.
Carol.
Yeah, that whole thing is actually.
I can.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'll talk to you later. That's fun. Thanks.
1, 2, 3.
All right.
Oh, sorry.
Okay, review and discuss participation in Governor Healy's transportation bond bill meeting on April 10th, 2025, and submission of written testimony letter of support for the Chapter 90 program. Is there a motion?
I make a motion to approve the letter of support submitted by the Highway Department for the April 10th, 2025, Chapter 90 program.
On the select board's behalf, okay, or the town's behalf, to be signed by the town administrator.
Okay.
Correct.
I thought it was already signed by the Highway Department.
Yeah, the highway department.
Oh, that's the
Sign as
one.
well?
No, it's, I mean, I could, but it is being, it's
already
signed by the highway superintendent.
The letter I have here is signed.
Okay,
So I just need to submit it.
Okay,
okay,
I'm gonna go again.
okay.
I make a motion to approve the letter of support submitted by the Highway Department on the town's behalf.
Second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, roll call.
Veronica Kell, yes.
Laura Schiffern, yes.
I think that's it. I've added two slides. One slide, I'll add a second one and get it to you guys for the thing. I added a slide that said, this is what the 625 supports.
Okay.
All town services minus the, with a decrease in expenses. The school budget fully funds the schools, both North Middlesex and the Neshoba Valley Technical High School. And it fully funds pay-as-you-throw trash.
Okay.
A 3-year contract. I don't know exactly what I said there. And I'm gonna add what Dawn just said, to work the numbers back from 1.3
Another slide for
million.
that.
Yeah, So, where did we go?
Okay.
You know, how did the numbers work after the March 10th?
I don't have a.
So,
I was just trying to come up with a plan.
and I'll put those in and I'll send it out. But did you
Don,
get?
you still have your hand up?
No, I understand that's what you're trying to say. I guess, I'm just.
It makes you unstable when you have everything, so I had the town in Northborough do that.
Sorry, that was an accident, sorry.
Thank you, but we've taken your suggestion, thank you.
And Sabrina, did you get it? Did it work? Me sending you are you on email at all? No, okay, don't get on. I sent it, I trust it got there, so. All right, that is it.
I'll let you know, motion to adjourn.
I make a motion to adjourn at 9:45.
Yes, ma'am. Second.
Veronica Kell, yes.
And Laura Chapin, yes.
All
Thank
right,
you very
thank
much.
you very much.